And we are live. Welcome to episode 5 of our Three Brothers campaign. In the last episode, we ended with the Dragonborn Drax entering his abode, his quarters in the Common Sword Tavern in the large trading town of Battlebridge. As he entered, he realised there was someone lurking in his quarters waiting for him, and a hooded, cloaked figure ran across the room, leaping through the window, glass exploding everywhere and landing on the street far below. The headstrong Dragonborn immediately followed after him, tearing a much larger hole in the side of the tavern, since he's quite a strappingly large fellow, and landed on the street below. Now, for our players, since we're having a short downtime period, what happened is you guys obviously heard the whole commotion, multiple people crashing through the windows, etc. However, when you all rushed outside, all you found was Drax lying dazed and half-conscious on the cobbles below. There was a shallow cut across his forehead, and quite a lot of blood had leaked out onto his face. He was able to mutter something about someone being lurking in his room and a hooded figure, but by the time you guys had got down there and looked around, whoever it was long gone. You can see the cut on Drax's forehead was fresh, although it seemed to be a very, very shallow cut. But as with most sort of head wounds, it obviously bled quite a lot. But of this person, there was no sign. Drax, since you were all getting ready for heading towards this masquerade ball that Avaestar had been invited to at the Laskaris estate, Drax said, for convenience sake, since we don't have Matthew for this session, said that he was going to remain behind and try and dig a little more into who this hooded figure was and see if he could investigate that further. So it was with regret that he informed you that he would not be attending the masquerade ball with yourselves. The journey to the Laskaris estate to the north of Battlebridge will take about a day's travel to get there. And the ball is in 3 days' time, so each of you effectively have 2 downtime days to spend. Now, before we get to what you actually want to do on those downtime days, we also have the matter of your lifestyle expenses, shall we say. So what I'm going to ask each of you now is what sort of manner you're spending your time living in. I mean, it depends on me if you want to spend your time living in an aristocratic, wealthy style over the course of those 2 days. Obviously, that'll cost more, but you'll have more pleasant days. So I'm going to ask each of you in turn what sort of lifestyle you're living for those 2 days, and I will tell you the appropriate amount of money you need to deduct from your total to justify living that sort of style. So, Avaestar, first of all, can you please tell me what sort of lifestyle you're living? Bear in mind, it goes all the way from squalid up to comfortable, wealthy, or the highest level, aristocratic.
I think, given he doesn't want to be too stuck out amidst everyone else, he would go for the wealthy option. Okay,
in which case 2 days of a wealthy lifestyle will cost you 4 gold pieces, and that's just for your room and board, the food you're purchasing during those days, etc. So if you deduct 4 gold pieces from your monetary total, then Audius, what sort of lifestyle are you living during those 2 days? Are you living it up in Battlebridge, splashing the cash left and right, or are you being more modest?
No. Audius is definitely way more modest. He's not living like a destitute life, obviously, but he doesn't spend a lot.
Okay, well, a modest lifestyle for 2 days would cost you 10 silver pieces. If you wanted to be a slightly more comfortable lifestyle, which obviously just a few more niceties, that would cost you 16 silver pieces for 2 days.
No, I think he'd go for modest.
Okay, so deduct 10 silver pieces from your total. Watoomb, what sort of lifestyle has Watoomb been living over those couple
Well,
of days?
I grew up living a simple life. Mm-hmm. So I think in town I would be living a modest lifestyle, but I'm also going to deduct 5 additional silver, which I'm going to give to the Church of Abraham. I'm going to be spending some of my downtime there, so I'm going to subtract 15 silver pieces, okay?
Okay, that's absolutely fine. I'll make a note of that. The church is obviously very appreciative.
Damn straight.
Which may garner you some additional bonuses, and certainly I know Audius has donated money to them in a previous session, so that will make them more well disposed towards you. They'll be more predisposed to like you if they don't have any reason not to in future sessions. Okay, so now you've all deducted those monetary totals. You effectively, assuming you're all travelling to the Masquerade Ball, which will take a day, you've all got 2 downtime days to spend as you see fit. Now, I do have the list of the various downtime activities that are suggested in the books open in front of me, which range from just sort of like carousing, which is basically just like living it up, drinking, eating, partying on the town, all the way through to things like practicing a profession, opening a business. Probably not applicable at the minute given the amounts of money you guys have or don't have. But what sort of thing are you engaging in your downtime? I'm going to go through and ask you each in the same order as I did before. So, Avaestar, how are you spending your 2 days of downtime before you begin travelling out to the Laskaris estate?
I'm just having a look in the book really to see how this would categorise, but I'm maybe training or researching, because what I would want to do is certainly peruse the libraries for any kind of spell books that I could research and look through, but also I would like to make some contacts if there are any more magical users in the area, maybe even some kind of small guild. I would definitely be interested in that and attend it the couple of days of downtime.
Okay, are you spending your whole 2 days of downtime doing that?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay, not a problem. In which case, can I ask you to make me an investigation check?
Yes. Investigation. Okay, it's just a +0.
Let me know what you get.
13.
Okay, there doesn't seem to be an organised sort of spellcasters guild in Battlebridge, which is itself quite odd. But you do find out there are a few sort of lower level sort of spellcasters. You don't really make contact with any sort of more powerful spellcasters, which in itself is a little bit odd. Battlebridge being the largest sort of trading town on Ellen, the island nation that you're on. But most of the spellcasters you come across appear to be sort of fairly low level. They mostly use their spells for helping with other trades, mostly cantrips, a smattering of low level spells, and they seem to belong more to sort of like trade guilds or things that are associated more with their other professions, which are being bolstered by the magic, rather than like an actual magician's guild, so to speak.
Okay.
However, you have managed to sort of put your name around and get to talking to a few of these sort of lesser spellcasters, so you know a few of them by sight.
Yeah. Well, Avaestar would presume there wouldn't be that much magic or magic users in the area anyway, considering it's so sort of out of the way for him anyway.
Okay, not a problem. So that is what happens during your 2 days. You spend your time sort of working out who these lesser spellcasters are and chatting to a few of them, making a few contacts, of getting your face known to them effectively, because most people in Battlebridge still don't know you guys exist really at this particular point, but you've sort of got your name and your face out there a bit. One thing you do find out is as you're wandering around the town, obviously if you want to do anything about this, we'll deal with that in a few moments.
Yeah.
As you're wandering around the town, you do hear from several people, tradesmen mainly associated with the sort of garment industry, that apparently, according to rumour, there is a half-elf in Battlebridge wandering around who's masquerading as a noble and generally sort of snubbing his nose at the local traders.
Okay. I would probably ignore them initially, because
Okay.
I'm used to getting sort of snubbed at and whatever.
Okay, not a problem. So we will jump over to Audius. Now, I've got an idea. I know what you're going to be doing during your downtime days, but lay it out there for me.
Do you know what I'm doing? Can you tell me? Because I have no idea.
Mastering the art of juggling?
All right, well, if you don't have any idea, what do you want to do during your 2 downtime days?
I think I'll try research more references to the Pale Marauders and Thaddeus with Anthus.
Okay. In which case, can you please make me some form of research or probably investigation would be the most applicable?
Okay. I also have the researcher trait, which just means that I know where to find information. Do you think that would be helpful? Or?
I'll say that will give you the advantage in this case. So still make your roll, but obviously you've got the advantage for it.
22.
Oh, right, okay. So you find out that the Pale Marauders are actually still sort of referenced even today, despite the fact that you've sort of previously referenced them as a historical footnote, really. From certainly what you've heard from Brius was all about the dim and distant past. However, there are rumours, certainly in the north of Ellen and in Frostholm, which is the nation to the north, occasionally someone will be found dead with a sort of their face painted white with a sort of a strange sort of chalk-based pigmentation, and those deaths are always ascribed to these Pale Marauders who have become almost these sort of legendary like bogeymen who sort of appear out the dark, kill people, and then disappear before anyone can get there. And pretty much towards the far north, any time like a village dies out, bear in mind that villages are quite far away from each other, so it's not uncommon for someone to go to a village that's not been visited for years or months and find out that that village has died, which could be due to plague, lack of food, disease, any number of reasons. But every now and again, when you look through the historical annals, or what remains of them, there are references to people being found sort of with this pale complexion, and they're always sort of ascribed to these Pale Marauders, although there are no direct mentions of them in recent records. There's no like direct proof that they exist.
Okay, no proof. So they're like kind of an urban legend?
Yeah, pretty much.
And people have been found with pale faces at the destroyed villages.
Indeed, certainly whenever a murder or a massacre is ascribed to the Pale Marauders, the only constant seems to be that the victims are found with either white painted faces or their faces just being very pale. You notice that most of the reports, because obviously with your fantastic role, you notice that most of the reports tend to come from the sort of northern reaches of Allen, where the weather starts getting a bit colder as you move further north. Normally sort of very hilly regions. And quite a few reports have been sort of passed down from Frostholm, which is the nation to the north, which is extremely cold, sort of getting into like the Arctic zone of the climate of the world.
Okay, so, and that would coincide with what Brius said, that he was in the mountains hiding Thaddeus. Okay. Alright, so that's my first day, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I think I would. I think I would be helping, because Antheus is setting up a business, right?
That's correct. Yeah. When you see him, he's already bought his charter to effectively house, to run like his tower as the landlord, and he's planning on trying to like attract some sages, users of the arcane, to his tower, and he'll basically live in the sort of library room, and he'll use the money he gets from them as a landlord to like pay for the maintenance and like finally repair his tower.
Okay, so I want to spend my second day helping him out.
Okay.
just with like setting up his like business and like I guess clearing stuff and reorganizing all his belongings for this.
Okay, that is not a problem.
And I just want to add a detail that I'm going to at some point borrow a book that looks like it. That's just on.
It's on.
Okay,
Sorry, carry on.
Yeah, so I also would take a book that looks like it might be like magical related, or one that is related to magic.
Okay, not a problem. We'll detail out exactly what that book is later. But given the help you've been to him moving all of his junk and helping him reorganise it, because as you've seen from Antheus, he might be a very clever fellow and very well learned, but his filing system leaves an awful lot to be desired. So you've been generally helping him like file everything and neaten everything up, ready for when he has like tenants into his tower. So he's quite grateful for the help, and he's quite willing to lend you one of his books on the arcane, obviously understanding that you'll return it at some point, but given that he already knows you're a bookbinder and therefore he knows you'll take good care of it, he's quite willing to do that. And we'll detail exactly what that is later. So that's your downtime sorted. We then come across to Watoomb. What do you intend to do for the 2 days?
Quick question. Battlebridge, how big is it physically? Like, what would be its approximate dimensions? Just ballpark it.
Yeah, I'm not very good with the ballpark figures. I'd probably tell you something that was vastly and entirely incorrect, but I do have it.
1,000 miles long and only 15 feet wide.
Yeah, that's sort of like my level of sort of ballpark, really. But let me just have a look at the map, and I'll actually be able to tell you. Okay, so let's see. So I estimate, and forgive me if this is slightly incorrect. I'm sort of going for a ballpark figure. I estimate if you did a sort of like 200 feet by 200 feet sort of squared, that'd probably be sort of the area.
The whole city is only 200 feet by 200 feet? That can't be right.
Let me just check that. I did say I wasn't very good with distances.
I was going to say 200 feet. That would be like here to my neighbor's house. We're done.
This has been one building the whole time, right?
We're the Matrix. That's it.
No, we're just all really tiny.
Everything is to scale.
Yeah. Oh, honey, I shrunk the party, sort of thing.
So like, my town is like half a mile by a mile. So, I mean, Battlebridge seems a bit bigger, maybe. It's got to be at least a mile square. I mean, the puny town I live in is a good 5 miles across.
Mm-hmm.
How far is that in
I did warn you I was very bad at distances.
Okay, well, let me just ask you this. I'll make it simpler for you. How long would it take you to walk from one end to the other?
You could probably walk it in a day.
Oh, it's big.
You could walk it really slowly if it's 200 feet.
If I was a tortoise, that would be pretty good progress.
You
okay.
Could probably walk it in a day.
All right, so what I would like to do is some major research and the minor research. The minor research is I just want to spend my in-between time walking around town, getting to know the town. Whoa, that's over there, that's over there, that's over. Nothing major, just have an idea of the layout of the city. For the most part, though, I'm going to be going back and forth between the Church of Abraham and the library, seeing if I can find any more references to these opposite color wands, these differently colored wands that are similar but not the same as mine. She's raised some grave concerns in me that the wands that me and my siblings are carrying around might be used to help the forces of evil and not stop them like our village originally thought.
Okay, can you make me an investigation roll, please?
Yeah.
What?
I'm going to take advantage too because I also have the researcher feat.
Yeah, that's absolutely fine. Go ahead.
Chief copied me, right? 23.
Okay. You don't, at first when you're looking, you don't find a great deal since records are quite fragmented. However, as you're getting near the close of the day that you've allocated to research this, you find a few fragmented old legends. And they're only fragmented. They're sort of some of the earliest writings that still exist, or, well, translations of the earliest writings that still exist, that survived the Gith occupation. You find a reference to an ancient legend from a people who existed before the Gith, which talks of when the world, their legends believe that when the world was created, there were 10 entities that were created to, like, as stewards of this new world. The legend later on, like I say, it's quite fragmented, but later on it speaks of 5 of these entities becoming corrupted. And it makes references to these entities carrying what are referred to as scepters of office to prove their authority.
Can Lady Cassandra add to any of this knowledge? I mean, she has one of these things in her possession, so, you know.
Okay, as she's able to tell you that her mentor, High Father Aesop, told her that according to the ancient legends he'd heard and what he'd heard from the people who passed it down to him, that apparently her wand, he believed that it was literally a piece of the divine, like a piece of divine energy, crystallized and made into material form, that came into this world when the world was still very young, and was passed into the hands of the people so that those who were worthy of the divine would be able to recognize its presence and would be able to champion the cause of creating a better world.
Okay. I'd like to do one minor thing then. This is a spell that I'm pretty sure Drax would have. One night when I'm back at the tower, I would like to get him to cast Detect Evil upon my wand.
Okay, that's not a problem.
It's just a level 1 spell, I believe, for a cleric.
Okay, he casts Detect Evil on your wand, and he tells you that Drax tells you that there is a strong resonance of evil coming from your wand.
I'm afraid of that. All right.
Which doesn't surprise you a great deal, to be perfectly honest, given your suspicions.
Nah. All right. Okay, thanks.
However, one other thing he does tell you is he tells you that the evil he's sensing from your wand, it's not an active evil. It's more sort of, if we talk about it in terms of like radiation, it's more like a sort of background radiation of evil rather than sort of like, oh, this is so evil it's going to cause your hair to fall out and render you infertile.
Right. Residue. I got it. Okay. Thanks.
Okay, no problem at all. Okay, then we reach the day when you begin travelling to the Laskaris estate, which is to the north of Battlebridge, and I will show you a picture of the local area. There we go, I hope you can all see that. We have Battlebridge is obviously there. The Laskaris estate is there. Each of these small hexes on here is 5 miles long. So how do you guys choose to travel to the Laskaris estate? Are you travelling on foot? Are you buying horses? How do you intend to get there?
So, is there a coach in there that we can take?
There doesn't appear to be a public coach that's heading there. If you ask around about it, you'll be told that the Laskaris estate and the Laskaris family in particular value their privacy, so they don't generally have sort of like public transport running to their estate. It's assumed that basically if you're wealthy enough to be invited to the estate, you can sort out your own transport.
Okay, so there's not even like a private coach we can hire?
You could certainly hire
taxis in town, yeah.
You could hire a private coach in the town, but you'd have to charter it specifically yourself to go to the estate rather than there being sort of like a shuttle service to the estate.
What's the cost of that? What would it cost? One coach for three of us, and there and back.
Okay, let me just check that for you.
I quite like that. It's a private coach.
Yeah, we don't want the limo version. We're not rich yet.
Okay, no problem. I will say, in order to hire a modest sort of coach, nothing too fancy, probably a slightly sort of shabby but serviceable coach. It's going to one that'll fit all of you, and it's like a 4-person coach. It will probably cost you a couple of gold pieces.
Can I remind both of you we need to make a good impression?
Oh, so how about 3 gold pieces then, 1 each? That should get it. That's 50% better than what he just said. How's that sound?
Yep, if you all chip in a few gold pieces, that will get you an extremely lavish, luxurious coach. Now, bear in mind that this cost is literally for the trip one way. If you want to have this guy wait around and take you back again, that will cost you effectively the same again.
No difference to me.
Well, big difference to me. I'm just about broke, so.
You know, if I was really nice, I could pay for the entire way.
Well, I'm putting in 2 gold anyway. I'll walk back if I have to. That's all I'm giving him. I'm almost out of money, so.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't afford the second trip.
Fine, then I will pay for the second trip, and I will chip in, as you say, another 1 gold for the way there.
Okay, not a problem. So you hire this it's still fairly small, but it's a bit more lavish, this coach, you know, velour, velvet interior, etc. Thick curtains over the window so you can pull them and get some privacy. It's modestly comfortable in case you wanted to like nap on the way there. That wouldn't be a problem in this coach. You see the driver is a young human who introduces himself as Alos. He's a fairly well turned out young man, fairly smartly dressed, nothing too aristocratic, but he's smartly turned out. There's a couple of horses, one white, one grey, on the coach, both looking reasonable nick to anyone who would know that sort of thing. He's happy to accept your commission, and after a little bit of haggling over the price and Avaestar agreeing to pay for the trip back, and you've sorted everything out, you get underway and you begin making your way there by coach. Now, as I say, the trip's going to take just less than a day to get there. Now, is there anything you guys in particular wish to talk about during the coach journey? If you do, feel free to do so now.
Yeah, so Watoomb is going to turn to Avaestar. I have not attended such a function as this before. What advice would you give me?
Well, where to begin? And Avaestar kind of looks at you a bit sort of patronising, as if not sure that you'll be blending in particularly well. Sort of, well, I suppose the best thing is to be very mindful of those around you, be very polite to anyone who approaches you. Do not speak unless someone else begins the conversation. I will, of course, take the initiative with that. And once you have finished mingling with one party, then you are supposed to move away and mingle with another party. And then he starts kind of elaborating in sort of increasingly complicated ways, like make sure you don't jut in at an inappropriate moment, and if there are so many people, then it's better to move on to another one, and so on and so forth. And it all starts to sort of wash over your head a bit.
After you do that, Audius just asks, will there be food?
Of course there will be food. What a silly question. There will be food,
Good.
Drink, perhaps even women. Not that I'm really bothered, but maybe you will be.
I gotta stare at you like you implied something really weird to me. And I'm gonna lean back thinking what the noble version of a tavern wench is.
Okay, as you're driving along, you hear a sort of rap from on the ceiling of the coach. You know that from the driver who's sat up on the sort of like the footplate at the front, driving the horses. You hear Alos' voice say, "So, how long are you expecting me to have to wait for, sirs? If you don't mind me asking."
Oh, well, we will be there until at least 1 o'clock in the morning. There's a big ceremony at midnight, you see. So, I suppose the best way to give you an answer is, do you have a blanket with you?
Oh, don't you worry about me, sirs. You've paid for me to wait however long you need me to. As long as it's not going to be like days or weeks, that's absolutely fine. No, I'll be quite happy outside. I've got a nice thick coat on. You know, I've got a flask down here. I'll be fine. You enjoy yourself, sir.
Oh, I certainly will, Aris.
He says, "Oh, I know you said you were going to the Laskaris estate," and so he says, I have heard. So they've a few nobles have chartered our coaches to actually go out to the estate. I did hear from one of the other drivers that apparently High Lord Bothron himself is going to be there. That'd be a turn up, wouldn't it?
It certainly would.
Well, I hesitate to guess that I won't exactly get to meet him. You know, not meaning any offence, sir, but I know how these noble types don't really like to mix with us common folk, especially like humble merchants like myself.
Well, no, that would be most strange indeed.
Well, I will say, like I said, I'll be fine outside, sir. If you could see your way to maybe sneaking a little bit of food out to me, and nothing fancy, just like a bit of bread and cheese or something like that, I'll be very appreciative.
I suppose I could speak to one of the servants, but I'm certainly not bringing anything out. I'll be far too busy.
Oh, of course, sir. I'm sure you will. I didn't mean anything by it, sir. I'll leave you all to carry on your discussions, and you hear him sort of like talking to the horses and snapping the reins a bit, leaving you guys free to discuss anything further you wish as you travel. It's Alos, sir. Alos.
Whatever.
If this trip takes a whole day, we're going to have to eat along the way a couple times. So when we do stop to eat, Watoomb is going to be like sort of studying Avaestar, like the way he holds his glass and the way he eats to try and, well, mugs, something, I don't know.
Indeed, since you've actually paid for the luxurious sort of coach, and you're paying the aristocratic rate, you notice as you're sort of looking around and wondering, effectively there's like a hamper inside the area where you're sitting that does indeed have some glasses in it. There's a bottle of wine in there. There's some bread, cheese, etc. Fairly simple fare, but it's just like a nice little hamper that's been set up for you to obviously tide you over on the long journey, recognising that obviously as nobles, you which he's assuming you all are, given that you've all paid for this coach, you couldn't possibly travel for a day without having some victuals on the way there. That'd be barbaric.
Yeah, so Avaestar, the way he's basically, he'll obviously like try to get a plate of some kind. He'll obviously have a glass of wine. Any sort of cheese, he'll sort of break into small pieces and use a little cocktail stick to eat them with, or perhaps even a very small cheese fork or something like that.
Indeed, cutlery is in the hamper.
Okay, then he definitely uses cutlery.
Okay, at this point, Watoomb, since you're observing Avaestar so closely, can I ask you to make me a perception roll, please?
Sure, yeah. So I'm like a child, like trying to study his movements and break the cheese apart the same way he breaks the cheese apart, and use the fork the same way he uses the fork. And, yeah, not very good.
Okay, what did you get?
6.
Okay. You have managed to observe Avaestar quite closely. However, some of the finer details of why Avaestar's like using a particular fork and a particular knife are a little bit lost on you. They're a little bit bewildering. Obviously, you come from an entirely different culture, so it's really not familiar to you. But you are picking up sort of like the basics. You think you've got enough to like not outright offend anyone, but when you're at the table eating.
Okay, cool.
Okay. Do any of the rest of you wish to do anything else during that day's travel before you arrive at the Laskaris estate?
No, but I'm going to flip through that. Well, yes, I'm going to flip through that book I got. And
okay, what sort of book were you looking for? Since you described you just
Get
wanted a
crumbs
magic
on it.
book.
yeah, I just wanted. This isn't for me, by the way, just so you know, but a book on perhaps like magic or like evil casters, like demons, that kind of thing.
Okay, I will say that you've basically got a book which is a collection of legends and, in some cases, sort of guard-style, like almost like police report-style documents, which deal with various fringe religions, sects, and cults, etc.
Now here's where it gets weird. I'm going to get up my ink, and I'm going to make notes. And my intent here is to make the notes look like as if an evil caster has been reading this book and trying to figure out how to do these things. It doesn't have to hold up to scrutiny against like an actual wizard, but it has to. My intent is to get to scare a person.
Okay. That's not a problem given your bookbinding and various skills. I'm not going to ask you to make a roll for that.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, you can certainly do that as you're travelling. You obviously eat, chat a little bit more on the way there, and as you eventually arrive at the Laskaris estate, you see this large mansion house which appears to have a single tower emerging from the southeast corner of it, sort of probably about 3 floors high. The whole estate looks as though it's a little run down, but it's still very serviceable. You can see a number of coaches already parked out the front. It's just dusk as you arrive, just starting to get a little bit dark. There's a stream that runs behind the actual estate, and I will show you a picture of what the estate looks like now to make it a bit easier for you. If my Google Hangouts will cooperate. There we go. Okay, so I'm hoping you guys can all see that. Okay, and
yep.
Effectively, you guys are coming in from this direction.
Okay.
As you draw,
Okay.
as you get a little nearer, you can see that effectively there's a small drawbridge over this small stream. However, it's not like a grand drawbridge. It's more just like a simple sort of bridge over this stream. There's a number of coaches parked to either side, so just off the map, sort of here. And as you sort of reach the edge of this small bridge, you can see that there is a entrance to the estate at the far end of the bridge. You can see a number of what appear to be guards, you would assume, holding spears, halberds, etc. They are wearing green and grey surcoats over what appears to be plate armour, and they appear to be stood on guard at the main door to the estate. The coach driver... Sorry, go ahead.
I'm going to turn to Avaestar looking at this thing. And is this massive building truly designed to house but one family?
Yes.
Well, it is as if a handful of mice were given a house of their own.
Now, just to point out to you guys,
strangely, Watoomb.
just to point out to you guys, I'm sure you've realised, but the numerous sort of side bits are actually sort of views of like the upper levels.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Now, as I said, the driver, Alos, pulls up your coach just off the map, just before this bridge starts. He pulls in next to a number of other coaches. He waves and greets a couple of the other coach drivers, some of which look very similar to the one you're in. You would guess they're the ones that have been hired from the same coach company. He raps gently on the ceiling of the carriage and says, "Well, here we are then, sirs, the Laskaris estate, all safe and sound as we promised."
Thank you, Addis.
It's Alos, sir.
So do we get out here, or what?
I think that's what he meant.
Well, I certainly, I don't mean to sound presumptuous, sir, but I certainly can't be driving the coach over that bridge there. I can't just drive straight up to the door, sir.
Is there not a little driveway where you can leave the coach? And I'm sort of looking out of the window a little bit.
Well, I'll just be more in here, sir, just alongside these others here, and I'll wait for you as long as you want. You've paid for the full service.
I sort of assess that I can like see a bit of the rest of the coaches. Well, I suppose this will do. Right, have you two got your masks on?
I put mine on. I said it with really elongated horns that point upwards. I do now.
Yeah, I also get my mask out and put it on, dust myself down a little bit. Remember, do not take them off until we are instructed.
Will we instructed to?
They said that there will be a great reveal at midnight. It is extremely important you follow this rule.
Okay.
Okay, so what are you guys doing? Are you just approaching the door, or?
I'm kind of letting Avaestar take the lead here.
Mm-hmm.
He seems to know what he's doing, and I don't.
Mm-hmm.
So every so often, when we sort of walking towards the gate, I sort of bark orders at them in a harsh whisper, like stand up straight and things like that. Sort of make sure they look the part.
Okay, not a problem. As you approach the door, walking over this small stone bridge that heads over this stream, you see the guards stood to attention, stood very smart. They look as though they're wearing their best dress uniforms, effectively. As you walk across, one of them looks at you and says, "I'm afraid I'm going to have to ask to see your invitation, sir."
Well, of course, it is a ball after all, and I get out my invitation and show it to him.
He takes the invitation out, stares at it intently for a few minutes, and then says, "Very good, sir, and these are your servants, your party, is that correct?"
Yes, that is correct.
Excellent, at which point he folds very neatly the invitation up, hands it back to you and says, "You'll need to present this to the head of the household when you enter. As you go through, there is a cloak room, sir, if you need to leave any coats, etc., cloaks, travel clothes. And then the main ballroom is just across the north yard, sir. There's a servant inside who will take you across to the main hall."
Wonderful, thank you. Yes, fantastic.
Okay. As you head through this small room here, which is marked number 2 on the map, you can indeed see it's effectively a cloak room. There is a smartly dressed servant in there. There are racks where there's numerous cloaks, travelling clothes, etc. hung up. As you walk in, this young boy who's very smartly dressed, although his hair's slightly scruffy, he looks up at you and says, "Can I take your cloak, please, sir?"
Yeah, I'm already starting to sort of unravel the chain or the rope or whatever it is and take it off, and I'm sort of in these sort of nicer, brighter robes now, or sort of in their full glory. It's quite a heavy coat, so I sort of give it to him maybe a bit too hastily, and he's kind of struggling to grab it a bit.
Okay, not a problem. He takes your cloak off you, and he turns around to this sort of array of wooden shelves behind him, and he puts your cloak on an empty shelf. Then he turns to Audius and Watoomb and says, "Can I take your travelling cloak, sir? Is there anything you wish to leave in the cloakroom?"
I'm gesturing with my head to sort of say yes, give him the cloak.
So I will say yes and give him the cloak.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, he places your cloaks on the same shelf as Avaestar's, and then he says, "Can I just ask your name, sirs, so I can, whose party this is, so I can make sure that we get the right cloaks to the right people when people leave?"
My name is Avaestar Tholage.
He says your name very slowly, Avaestar Tholage, as though he's trying to remember it. You see him walk over to the small shelf, and he sort of puts a small mark on it with his thumbnail, and then says, "Very good, the Tholage party. I'll make sure all your goods are carefully looked at. If you head through this door here, you'll be moving into the north yard. There is a servant there waiting to take you to the main ballroom."
Thank you.
I hope you enjoy your stay at the estate, sirs.
I certainly will, thank you.
Okay, and as you head through the door at the far end of the cloakroom, you enter into a large yard. It's cobblestone that looks very clean. You can see that off to the west, to the north of you, is what appears to be a large building, although it's only on one level, whereas off to the right of you are the main buildings of the estate to the south of where you are at the present. There is a slightly older man, again wearing a very smart, almost identical looking suit, stood there. He's rubbing his hands together as you walk in, and then says, greetings, sirs. Welcome to the Laskaris family estate. How are you on this fine free trade evening?"
I am doing quite well, thank you. Am I to present you with the invitation?
If you would be so good, sirs, then I can make sure you're announced properly when you enter the ballroom. He takes the invitation off you with a great reverence and slowly unfolds it, looks at the invitation. Ah, the Tholage party, very good. Passes the invitation back to you, neatly folded. Then says, "If you please follow me, sirs."
I give him a nod and I start following him.
Okay. He leads you across the north yard to a large section of the building, and then says, "Well, sirs, this is the main hall. If I can please ask you to wait outside for just a moment, I will go and mention you to the head of the household, who is of course the highest of us servants here, and he will announce you appropriately as you enter. When you hear him speak, of course, feel free to enter." And he opens the door, steps inside. You hear murmured conversation from behind. As he opens the door and shuts it, you hear soft string music playing in the large room beyond. It's echoing quite a lot, so you gather this room is extremely large. Then you hear a voice from beyond the door, a very imperious sounding voice, say, "My lords and ladies, presenting Avaestar Tholage and party."
I'm feeling a little bit with butterflies in my stomach, but also quite sort of excited by this. So obviously the mask is helping, so I'm going to slowly step in.
Okay, what about Audius and Watoomb? Are you following along, or are you hanging back?
Yeah, I'm letting him take the lead. I'm not feeling the butterflies because I'm not well versed enough in these things to understand the importance. But it's all very interesting to me.
Okay, not a problem. You enter into this extremely large ballroom. You see down either side of this huge ballroom are large tables groaning with ridiculous amounts of fine food. This is probably more food than you've ever seen in your life, Watoomb, gathered in one place. As you're looking around, you can see what appeared to be, you think it's hare or some sort of rabbit. There's what looks to be like almost half a stag laid out on a large silver platter with some sort of thick, voluptuous sauce over the top of it. There's poultry, veal, pies, just food lining these groaning tables down both sides of the ballroom. At the far end of it is a band wearing sort of white masks with elongated, pointed noses. They're playing a variety of instruments. A lot of them are on panpipes. There are people playing string instruments, flutes, etc., producing this wonderfully rhythmic, classical-sounding music as you enter. Obviously, as you enter, the music rises to reach you, and you can see there is a large crowd of people, some of which are dancing on the main ballroom floor. Others are stood around the side helping themselves to the food, which seems to be served in a sort of buffet style rather than a sit-down meal. Although you do notice, as you look around Watoomb, having been studying Avaestar eating, that they're all holding napkins and using bizarre miniature cutlery to pick up small items of food. As you watch, you see a man wearing a sort of leering demon mask picks up what looks like a small snail with a tiny silver fork and pops it into his mouth. And you can hear the dim hubbub of conversation as all of these people are engaged in various conversations around the room. Although it's difficult to pick out any specifics due to the music. You can see at the far end there is a slightly raised dais or area. There are a couple of very grand, immaculately carved wooden chairs on this raised dais. As you enter, you can see the crowd. There is a bewildering array of different masks. There are some that look like metal faces, you would guess from the fact that the people who are wearing them are quite a lot shorter than everyone else, that they are possibly dwarves, halflings, or gnomes. But they're all wearing these very stylized metal-looking masks. There's a bit of an example there you can see on the overlay I've just put up. Almost like helmets, but like I say, very stylized. There are people wearing leering demon masks, people wearing grotesque caricatures of the human form. There are others wearing golden masks that seem to display the human form, almost an ideal of the human form. There are people wearing demon masks, animal masks, masks depicting fantastical creatures. A whole array of different masks as you enter. Most people turn round politely and watch as you are announced. After you all enter, they turn back to their fellows and they begin chatting away.
Okay. So I'm going to try to look around the room to see the most the most noteworthy female here, because Alfeo said, no, not like that. Alfeo said that Samantha you'd know her when you see her. Okay,
as you're looking around the room, you do see a particularly attractive, you think human, it's difficult to tell because of the costume. This human female appears to be wearing a mask that is made of like mirrored mosaic tiles, and the whole of the gown that she is wearing is made of some sort of strange reflective material. She stood there, pinky up, holding a long fluted glass, delicately sipping at wine.
Mm-hmm.
It's certainly the most striking female in the room as far as you can see.
Yeah. And mainly the costume, right? Okay.
Okay. So what do you do with this information, or are you just noting her presence?
I'm noting it for now, but at the moment
okay.
I'm waiting to see what.
Can I ask you, and this may sound like an odd question, but bear with me, in Audius's opinion, what would be the ideal female form for Audius? If Audius was to pick a partner or a potential mate, what would that person look like?
I don't know, I have not considered that.
Well, how about I jump to one of the others and give you a bit of time to think about that?
Yeah. I might send you just a message while you're doing it so I can compose the list of traits that he likes. No
problem. Feel free to send it me privately on the chat. That's absolutely fine. Okay, so Avaestar, looking around, you can see the scene as I've described. There is a large ornate timepiece on the far wall just behind these wooden chairs that I've described. You can just about make out a door at the far end of the room. Well, there are quite a lot of people smoking pipes, etc. in here, so there is like a sort of a bit of a haze hanging over the room.
Okay.
But you can just about make it out. What do you intend to do as this bewildering array of grotesques and creatures of legends and odd mirror-faced and metal-faced people, all sort of, they're mingling around and slowly circulating around the room talking to each other?
Well, Avaestar isn't particularly fazed by it. He certainly heard that this is quite a tradition to have the weird and wonderful, the strange and grotesque to mark people out, and it's a way of basically being exciting when you're super, super posh. Avaestar initially, he's a bit surprised that dancing is already taking place, but what he's going to do is he's going to look around to see if there's anyone serving drinks for people on arrival, in which case he's going to take some wine in a small chalice and go and see if he can mingle.
Okay, it doesn't take you long after looking around to see that there are a number of people wearing sort of like smart dress suits, wearing similar white-faced masks with the elongated pointed nose as the band, and they appear to be circulating around with trays of drinks, nibbles, etc. And people are just sort of helping themselves or sort of gesturing them over and then helping themselves to the drinks and food. So it doesn't take you a great deal to attract attention. In fact, no sooner have you sort of like raised your hand than the nearest one comes rushing over with a silver tray, large fluted glasses with a very sort of deep purple beverage inside it.
Oh, very nice. Good appetizer. So yeah, Avaestar will take one of those. He'll probably actually just take a look at the other two, just to kind of gesture that he's going to go and mingle and that they should do the same, and that they should probably not eat food straight away. Anyway, he's going to go and start mingling with groups of people.
Okay, not a problem. At this point, can I ask you to make me a performance roll?
Oh, absolutely. Come on, charisma. Oh, 5.
Okay, not a problem though. That's fine. Everyone expects nobles to mingle and talk to people. It's not a difficult role. As you're mingling around, you see a group of people wearing various masks, sort of chatting, and one of them says, "Well, I can see that Madame Laskaris likes to keep her guests waiting, no doubt hoping to build up the anticipation when she reveals what her mask is. I wonder what scandalous thing she'll be wearing this year. I trust we're going for the normal midnight reveal. Is that the case?" Someone next says, "Yes, of course we are. Of course we are." He says, "Well, I hear." One of the other people says, "Well, I hear." A person wearing like a leering demon mask says, "Well, I hear that apparently Madame Laskaris is going to be attempting to find a husband for her daughter Samantha this evening." But you didn't hear that from me. One of the other people says, "Well, I don't know who you are, so who would I tell?" The person who's laughing sounds like they're slightly sloshed already. They've no doubt been imbibing a little bit too freely of the wine available.
Yeah, I'm going to roll my eyes while they're not looking and sort of discreetly smell this beverage, really just to kind of assess how fast to drink it so it doesn't go straight to my head, because I certainly don't want to get sloshed.
It smells like a very strong and very fine vintage of wine. It has floral notes to it. You get a bit of a smell of damp grass coming out of it. All the smells that you would associate with an extremely fine vintage of wine.
Is it,
like I say, quite strong.
Is it fizzy?
No, it's still.
Okay. In that case, I take a little slurp and just kind of interject myself. Maybe not with those two, but with people nearby.
Yep, no problem. You take a sip of this fine wine, and it tastes like a very fine, very old red wine. Okay, so whilst Avaestar's off and mingling, what's Watoomb up to? And this is probably like one of the most alien environments you've ever been in, Watoomb.
Right. So, because I've traveled such a long way from my homeland, almost every day is new sights to him, new things to see. But this is like just a smorgasbord for the eyes. So I stand around somewhat slack-jawed and wide-eyed. I'm glad I'm wearing a mask. Taking all this in, all the various sights and the food. I'm thinking there must be at least 100 more people coming for the amount of food there is.
Mm-hmm.
And I do this to a point of distraction such that I'm not even standing by them anymore, and I start speaking to them, not realizing that they're not there. I say, I am as a hungry dog in an unguarded butcher shop. So I look around almost as if I'm in a museum or a zoo, taking in all the various sights, like I get a kind of closer look into them. I remember that Avaestar warning not to eat too soon, but eventually I work up the courage to take a drink off one of the serving people's trays.
Okay, not a problem. The servant conspicuously doesn't speak to you. They just sort of hold up the tray with their head bowed and then make themselves scarce as soon as you've taken the drink. There's no question. Yeah, you thank them. The servant pauses for a bit and sort of scratches his head, although all you can see is this elongated white mask, as though he's a little bit confused at the fact you've thanked him, and then he sort of nods, and you hear a very soft voice from underneath the mask say, "Oh, thank you, sir," and he makes himself scarce.
I'm just going to very gingerly sip at it, very cautiously.
Yeah, it tastes like a very fine wine, as I've described previously. As you're doing that, a gentleman wearing one of these sort of grotesque sort of caricatures of the human feature sort of sidles up alongside you, so he's just sort of circulating around the room. And he looks at you, perhaps realizing you're a little bit out of place here, and he says, I don't mean to pry, my good man, but have you tried any of the servants yet?
I do not understand.
He sort of gently, you assume it's a man, although it's difficult to tell. The voice is quite muffled by the mask, and the sort of loose-fitting garment that the person's wearing is quite sort of asexual. It's difficult to really tell. It's quite baggy. Lays a hand gently on your shoulder and then says, "Oh, my dear fellow, I can see you're quite new to the lifestyle." Well, yes, of course. All of the servants are here for our entertainment, if you understand my meaning. As long as you don't kill any of them or harm any of them, you can pretty much do whatever you want. That's one of the enjoyable things about these balls. It's a time for us all to forget who we might be outside these walls and just enjoy ourselves and give free rein to whatever passions, whatever urges you have. As long as no one's harmed, of course.
I apologize, but I still do not understand.
At which point he says, "Oh, well, consider me your guide to this wonderful smorgasbord of delights that is laid on for us this evening. Let me see." You see him sort of like peering around the room, and he holds up a hand. I'm using he. It could be a woman, but at the moment I'm choosing the pronoun he. Clicks his fingers, and a servant, which appears to be a young woman, again wearing one of these white masks with the elongated nose and quite a sort of revealing outfit, walks over and he says, "My dear, would you be a sweetheart? My friend here," and he pats you again gently on the shoulder, is a little bit dazzled by all the finery that's laid on display. I think he could do with something to help him relax. Would you take him off to one of the curtained off areas just over there, and if you could help him relax, that I would be very, very grateful." At which point the servant, again not speaking, just nods, and she holds out a very delicate hand towards you, Watoomb.
Okay, so the real meaning finally dawns on me, and I'm horrified, but I'm also struggling with what Avaestar told me, not to make a spectacle, so I'm just like, no, thank you, no.
Oh, of course, you would. I'm terribly sorry. You would prefer a young gentleman, says your grotesque.
No. I no, thank you. I just turn and I walk away, like in the opposite direction. Give me this guy.
You hear your grotesque ass friend sort of laughing musically, and then he puts his arm over the young servant woman's shoulders and walks off towards this curtained area, and whatever they're saying to each other is lost in the midst of the music and the hubbub of conversation that's going on. Okay, I'm going to jump back to Audius for a moment, who's been sort of staring at this mirror-masked woman. As you're sort of staring at it, it's almost so, you know when you see like a heat haze over a desert, that sort of optical illusion sort of effect. There's a strange sort of shimmering over the woman's entire body, and as you look at this woman, as the shimmering fades away, you suddenly see what appears to be a very tall, broad-shouldered and muscular half-orc female standing in the place where this young woman was previously. It looks as though this person is every inch your sort of ideal partner. If you were trying to get someone to draw out your ideal woman, it will be the person who stands in front of you.
So I actually thought about this before, and what is first like the last memory he had, or the earliest memory he had when he woke up, one of his the things he had was a letter from someone called Tara. So he thinks this could be that person, so he's going to kind of like stupidly approach.
Okay, not a problem. You walk over to this woman. As you draw near, this half-orc female turns around and looks at you, and in quite a sort of posh-sounding human voice, which sounds extremely odd coming from this gruff-looking half-orc female, says, "Yes."
Alright, and it kind of takes me out of it, because I know, like, there are certain, like, sounds Audius can't, like, physically can't make with his, like, orcish, like, small tusks.
Indeed.
So he, like, like, as if someone had just screamed out "boo" at her, suddenly. Yeah. Oh, that's quite the intriguing costume you have there.
Why, thank you very much for saying so. Procured at no small expense, I might add, but House Foliage does have an image to maintain. And again, it's strange because as you're saying this, it's this half-orc sort of moving its mouth and saying the words, but it's this very sort of posh, female-sounding human voice.
And I'm still kind of like thrown by this, and I start to kind of, using my knowledge of the arcane, I begin to like describe what the enchantment is, and in a very impressed sort of manner. Okay.
Not a problem. What is your aim when you're describing this enchantment to this person?
Flattery, I guess.
Okay, not a problem. Make me a performance roll.
15. God.
Okay. The woman does indeed seem impressed, and she sort of reaches behind her head with one hand, and as she does so, again there's this shimmering, and the half-orc is replaced by this woman wearing a sheer sort of chiffon silvery shimmering dress and this mirror mosaic mask, as you saw previously. He says, "Oh well, I can see you're quite the discerning fellow. If you don't mind, if it's not presumptuous for me to ask, do you mind if I ask which house you're a member of?"
Okay, so I'll say that I came here with a member of House Foliage, and if I can, I will use spin to say I'm not just some guy that Avaestar met randomly.
Okay, how are you intending on portraying yourself? What impression do you want to give to this woman?
Someone of importance, but I can't really fake being noble.
Okay, well, not a problem. Given that you've got quite a high performance role, what I'll say you do is you manage to portray yourself as like a sort of elite attaché to to Avaestar Thologist party, sort of like an expert who's been brought in, possibly giving you a half-orc nature, maybe security or something like head of personal security or something along those lines.
Yeah, and then to, I guess, flatter her further, I kind of ask, is it possible for you to turn off the enchantment?
Well, yes, of course. You've just seen me do this. Obviously, you can see me as my costume depicts me now. We paid a little bit.
I didn't notice.
A little bit extra. Oh, aren't you quite the charmer? Well, we did pay the little extra to make the enchantment so it could be deactivated. We thought that when the rest of our party arrived, it might prove a distraction. But you've got to admit, my friend, it does make a very startling first impression.
Indeed, it does.
Again, forgive me if I'm being presumptuous, but your voice, might I ask, do you have orcish blood?
I want to gauge if there's a hint of like orcish blood, like that sort of disdain in the voice.
Okay, not a problem. That will be an opposed check. I will say that you can either make a perception or an investigation roll, your choice.
Would this be insight?
Insight is also possible, yeah.
Yeah, it's insight for perception if it's body language, really. So.
Okay, yeah, go for it. You need to be
13.
12. Okay.
Oh, okay.
You actually think that she sounds curious. She even sounds a little sort of excited, to be honest. There's no real trace of malice or something like, yeah, you're a dirty half-orc, to what she's saying. She actually sounds more curious than anything.
Have you conversed with my kind before?
Oh no. Well, aside from the orcish servants that House Laskaris keeps here, I've not really encountered any orcs before. Forgive me if I'm asking you a lot of questions. I'm just quite interested.
Feel free to ask away.
If you don't mind me asking, how did a member of my own house? Forgive me, I can't really introduce myself. There's this whole thing where we're not supposed to reveal our identity until midnight. I'm sure you must have heard of it, but I'd certainly be most interested in talking to you on a more open basis once the big reveal has happened. But how did a member of your race? I don't mean to sound rude, but how did a member of your race come to work for a member of House Thologist? And I know it's not, and she lowers her voice, but I know it's not strictly the done thing, but do you mind if I ask which member of my house you're here with?
She's asking me which member she's here with.
She's asking how you came to work for her house and which member of House Thologist you're here with.
Oh, she's asking me how I'm working for her house? Did I give that impression?
That's certainly the impression that she got off you.
Okay.
Or perhaps it's the case of she heard you being announced as a member of Avaestar Thologist party, which seems a little bit strange if she's then asking you who you actually arrived here with. But
no, I arrived in this town and I met Avaestar.
She laughs and says, Avaestar? Really? Avaestar can afford to employ the services of a clearly very capable young man such as yourself.
So this is supposed to be at ease, and I inadvertently slander Avaestar, saying that no, we more or less works a whiff.
Oh, I see. You have an arrangement. Is that the case?
I nod.
Well, well, my strapping young friend, if you should ever fancy working with a member of House Foliage who is, shall we say, not out of favour with our house, let's keep things diplomatic, shall we? Someone who is not out of favour with our house, then, as I've said, I would be most happy to talk with you after the big reveal has happened.
Indeed.
I could certainly make use of a strong-looking fellow lady. I mean, she's obviously like looking you over as much as possible, giving you a costume. At which point she says, "But I've monopolised your time quite so much. These affairs are a little tiresome, but we have to put on a show. You know, we have to talk to the right people, mingle, etc. So I'll leave you to enjoy the rest of the evening. However, I know these things are a little difficult, but I will try and find you after the big reveal, and maybe we can talk a little bit further." Well, I hope you have a pleasant evening, my friend.
I nod.
And she turns around, her gown sweeping out, and she walks off and begins talking to some other people. As you're sort of doing this and just winding up your conversation, you hear the doorman stood in his immaculate suit, again one of these white-faced masks on. He turns around, looks into the room, and says, "My lords, ladies and gentlemen, the delegation from House Bothron." And as he says this, a number of very short figures, again wearing these metal stylized helmets, come walking into the room. You know, everyone sort of goes a little bit quiet as they walk in through. A few people are sort of peering, trying to look over people's shoulders to see who walks in. After a few moments, when they sort of like, they're probably not going to work out exactly which members of House Bothron they are, they turn and go back to their conversations, and the members of this House Bothron party start mingling amongst the other nobles that are present. Okay, Avaestar, what are you up to? You're mingling. Are you seeking out anyone in particular?
Yeah, I would probably be seeking out that individual whom I spoke to, basically to get work for, see if he's arrived yet. Also, if I spot any members of my house, depending on whether I have a good relationship with them, I might briefly speak to them, and I'll certainly keep a lookout for any more advanced magic users if they happen to be around, or if I can tell that anyone has some kind of magic aura.
It's very difficult to tell people's identities with the masks and the huge costumes that people are wearing. However, as you're mingling around, you see a person wearing one of these golden, sort of idealized human face masks, talking to a group of other people, and he says, No, of course, I tell you, this is the truth. I heard it straight from the horse's mouth, as it were. Surely you must be joking, my friend. You must have misheard. Why would he be House Edgemar? That doesn't make any sense at all. He says, No. I've seen the documents. I've heard it all. They tell me that Taker is one of the bastards of House Edgemar. Of course, they're trying to hush it all up. I mean, who'd want to have the notorious King of Thieves as one of their house members? Of course they're trying to hush it all up. No, I think you must have just heard incorrectly, or whoever told you this is mistaken. That's quite clearly rot. And they continue this conversation.
Okay, so I'm going to sort of interject, but I'm going to change the subject and sort of keep things relaxed a bit. So I'll probably talk about, I don't know, the filet mignon or something like that.
Okay, not a problem. What the person in the gold mask turns around and says, "You should really try the civet of hare. It's quite spectacular."
Oh, I certainly will, and I start beckoning someone with a big platter over to try a little nibble of it.
Not a problem. Servant rushes over. There's a small sort of sauce boat with some sort of plum sauce in it, and these tiny like rissoles almost of this hare that are neatly laid out. on the plate.
Oh yes, most tender indeed.
Okay, as you're saying this, there is suddenly a loud bong of like a bell being rung, and at the far end of the room, anyone who looks in that direction, you see what appears to be a quite elderly looking woman not wearing a mask. A few people are like, oh, she's not wearing a mask, oh, how scandalous, as this old woman walks out. She's helped by the person who has been announcing people. He walks over to her, helps her up onto this raised dais, and she sits down on one of the elaborate wooden chairs and then says, my lords, ladies and gentlemen, I welcome you all to my humble estate. Everything here is laid on for your own entertainment and your own pleasure. The only rule I have, well, I suppose it's more like 2 rules, but the only rule I have is that you harm none of my staff during your entertainment, and 2, that you not reveal your identity until midnight. We will sound the bell again when it reaches midnight, for those of you who are otherwise engaged, just so you know what time it is. Until then, feel free to enjoy yourselves. I do apologise for myself appearing unmasked, but it's rather difficult to project one's voice when you're muffled by such attire. So I will content myself with watching all of you taking your pleasures. I'm a little too old for such things myself, but as the head of House Laskaris, I welcome you all to my humble estate. Please enjoy yourself. And then she turns around to the manservant that stood next to her and whispers something, at which point he nods, and she sits back in the chair. The hubbub of conversation slowly starts returning to normal. The band strike up again, playing music, and a number of people move out onto the dance floor and start gracefully twirling and spinning about.
Where did this old woman go?
She's still sat on this ornate wooden chair at the far end of the room on this raised dais.
Okay.
You notice, however, as you're sort of looking at her, audience, that she appears to be sort of like intently watching everyone in the room, sort of like looking from person to person.
Okay. I'm sort of worried that she'll worry what will happen if she looks at me, just because I'm really tall and probably stand out.
She does look at you at one point, then her gaze moves on to other people. It's just a bit to be generally sort of keeping an eye on what's going on in the room.
Okay, that's interesting. She's reading through that.
I also make a couple of neutral remarks about her, maybe something like, it is interesting she is not wearing a mask, but I suppose she has very striking features.
One of the people who stood near to you wearing a leering, sort of horned demon mask says, well, if you're seeking to make a scandalous entrance to a masquerade ball, what better way to do so than to appear unmasked?
Absolutely.
You say what you like about the Lady Laskaris, she certainly knows how to make an entrance. Mind you, if the rumours are true about what happened to her husband,
And what rumours are those, may I ask?
Oh no, I couldn't possibly. I'm sure they're nothing but rumours. I don't want to spread idle talk.
Oh, I'm very good at keeping secrets. My
The
lips will be
the person doesn't really take much prompting to spill their guts effectively.
Okay.
He leans in with his demon mask and says, well, as far as I hear it, it wasn't long after Madame Laskaris married into the family that her husband became quite ill. Well, with him dead, she assumed control of the noble family. And they say us members of House Nazara are schemers. And someone who stood like a couple of people back says, well, you are schemers.
Most intriguing. Maybe it is to show her transparency, that lack of a mask. And I sort of examine her for a little bit, maybe about half a minute.
Not a problem.
I'm getting quite pensive, so maybe if they're still sort of talking to me, I won't interact with them straight away because I'm so sort of fixed.
Not a problem. As you're sort of fixed on her, you hear the person wearing the demon mask say, "Well, quite true. It's probably all just scandalous rumours. You know how these things tend to get about." Mind you, I did notice that she looked quite close to Eurasian, her manservant over there. You know what they say about young blood firing up the elderly heart?
Yes, I have heard of such things.
Well, I'm sure it's just idle talk, nothing to be concerned about, says the person with the demon mask.
Well, yes. I'm sure we could get you somebody. A bit of entertainment. Sounds like you're up for something.
Why? Whatever did you have in mind?
I'm trying to sound kind of boisterous and laddish in a very posh way, but it's not quite working. So Avaestar kind of is taken a bit aback by this. Says, "Well, no, I meant with one of the servants."
The person sounds sort of a little bit disappointed and says, "Oh yes, of course. I've already dallied with a couple of the servants during the early evening's entertainment. No need to wear myself out before the big reveal. I had rather hoped that you were suggesting something a little more interesting, but still, it's a dreary, sad world we live in."
Oh, in my opinion, it's not sad at all. I find it quite liberating. I like to keep myself, shall we say, pure.
At which point the person literally just like throws their head back and is like, pure. Yeah, splendid. He says, "Well, it's been a long time since anyone has lectured a member of House Nazara on purity." A couple of other people are like, sort of like tittering behind their hands.
I sort of get quite annoyed, but I keep stum.
He leans a little close to you and lowers his voice and says, "You are aware of why they call House Nazara the House of Horns, are you not?"
I can only guess.
He leans forward a little and says, "Obviously I can't reveal my identity, that would be terribly gauche of me." But and he leans forward and he just sort of like pulls the very edge of his mask down, and as he does so, you can see that the horns aren't actually part of the mask, they're actually emerging from his head. And then he sort of lets go of it and the mask fits back, and it's been immaculately crafted to fit flush with the horns, giving the impression that they are part of the mask.
Well, quite a literal meaning behind it then.
Of course. As this is all going on, Audius, you've actually, as you've been looking around the room, having finished your conversation with this woman, you've actually noticed that quite a lot of these servants stood around wearing these white, sort of elongated nose masks, appear quite sort of large in stature and quite muscular, despite the fact they're wearing very smart suits. I mean, we're talking sort of like your stature.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so more orcs.
That's certainly an assumption.
Or half ogres. Or part whatever, I don't know. Okay, so I'm actually going to look around and see where they're bringing out the food.
Okay, yeah, as you look around, you can see that at several points the main door that you entered through opens and servants are coming in carrying these platters, dropping them off, picking up the empty ones and carrying them back out the main door. Perhaps one of the buildings you saw across the courtyard was like a servant's building or a kitchen.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm going to try a shadow one in there. And I assume that they're also bringing out all the drinks from there, and
Indeed.
They might have large, like, punch bowls. Alright, cool.
Okay, not a problem. Are you going to try and be particularly sneaky about the way you shadow them, or are you just like brazenly like strolling after them?
Sneaking.
Okay, make me an appropriate roll for that.
17.
Okay, not a problem. As you watch, you see a particularly large-looking servant picks up a huge pile of these empty trays with apparently very little effort, although they are like solid metal trays, and he starts carrying them towards the door, opens the door, carries them out into the courtyard. You follow after him. He doesn't appear to have spotted you. I will bring the map up again just to make it a bit easier for you. There we go. Okay, as you watch, you see him emerge out of the front door here, and he starts making his way across the north yard to a gate here. It's just an archway, there's no sort of door in it.
I can't see the map, so yeah, that's fine though.
He makes his way across the north yard to a large archway, heads into another yard beyond it. You can see there's stables there and a couple of buildings. He heads to the building nearest the stables and disappears inside.
Okay, I'm going to go up to that building and I'm going to take a peek inside a window to see if there are like chefs cooking things, or like, if it's a busy room, or is it more like a storeroom where they're keeping all of stuff.
Okay, as you peer inside, you can see it's a very busy kitchen inside there. There are chefs preparing numerous courses of very sumptuous-looking food. There are lots of these similarly attired servants, some of which are very large, some of which are normal human proportions. As you watch, the large fellow that you followed walks in, and as he does, one of the serving plates slips out of his grasp and clatters to the floor, at which point one of the chefs, sort of waving a cleaver about to punctuate his words in a very sort of angry voice, says, "You there! Stop dropping those plates. We can't have any damage to the silverwork. Oh, if I was to report this to Lady Laskaris, you'd be back in Troll Town before you knew what hit you. Have some appreciation for the position you've been given here." At which point you hear a low sort of growl from this servant, but instead he just sort of in a very gruff voice said, "Yes, sorry about that." And he picks up, very slowly picks up this tray and plonks them down on the table. He says, "Careful there, you clumsy oaf." At which point again there's this slight growl from the servant, and he's like, "Yes, I'm sorry about that, sir. I'll go and check on the other servants to make sure everything's been prepared." This chef waves his cleaver about again, chopping some food on the desk in front of him, and says, "Well, see what you do. We've got to make sure everything's just perfect for this ball. We can't have any fiascos like we did last year. Go! I'm not having what happened to the last head chef happen to me."
Alright, so there are like tons of chefs in here, and that's just the head chef. Do they look like they might be so busy that it would actually be easy to sneak through there, because they would all be busy?
It'd certainly be easier, since there's a lot of chaos going on. There's people running about picking up plates. There's numerous chefs preparing different banquet courses. It'd be easier to sneak through here, yeah.
Okay. So, yeah, I'm going to sneak inside, and this is the kind of sneaking where it doesn't matter the noise, but you kind of want to go fast and do whatever it is you're going to do before anyone realizes that you're not the kind of person that's supposed to be here.
Okay, make me your stealth roll. I will give you advantage due to the chaos going on here.
Ooh, 17 and a 20, so 26.
Okay, you have successfully stealthed your way in. What is your aim when you head in there?
Okay, I'm going to replace one of the ingredients. Yeah, I'm going to replace one of the ingredients that they're using with the skull basher.
Yeah, not a problem. You see one of these large sort of punch bowls that people are being served out of, and the drinks and the fluted glasses are being served out of. You think, given the quantity of liquid in there, you could easily sort of, you might have to sift some of the lumps out of the skull basher, but if you did that, it'd probably be quite difficult to notice. Most of the nobles are a bit sloshed anyway.
So I'm going to stab the cork in the bottle of the skull basher so I can pour it out without the lumps getting in there.
Yep, not a problem. And you, how much are you putting in? Are you putting all of it in, or?
Yeah, all of it.
Yeah, not a problem.
Um,
You pour it all in and disappear the bottle inside your clothes before anyone notices.
and I'm almost tempted to check if they have more bottles, because they probably do around this place. But
Oh yeah,
I'm not
there's
gonna
loads of like bottles of wine about. There's wine racks on the walls with some dusty old vintage bottles on.
I mean more like that bottle that an orc chef might have of Skull Basher, like hidden. But I'm not looking around for it.
You don't see any skull basher, and most of the chefs appear to be human. It seems to only be some of the serving people who are perhaps of orcish descent.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So, I've done what I came here to do. I'm going to go outside, and that servant that was just talked down to was orcish, right?
Yeah, as you sort of walk out, you can see he's heading to the building next to the kitchen building, and he's just sort of like knocking on the door. He's like, "It's me, let me in." At which point the door opens and he steps inside.
Mm-hmm. Okay. It's like a whole other thing. Okay, I'm gonna see if I can follow him.
Okay, are you just pushing the door open and going in, or are you... It'd be quite difficult to sneak in because you'll have to open the door to go in.
No, I'm not bothering sneaking.
Okay, you push the door open. As you walk in, you see you're in like a sort of small two-story building. It looks like it might be servants' sleeping quarters. There's numerous cots spread about. As you walk in, you can see this half-orc servant stood there. He's now taken his mask off. There is no doubt he's of orcish descent. And you can see there's about another half a dozen half-orcs wearing servants' attire in the room. They all look quite pissed off, to be honest. It'd be difficult for most non-orcs to tell, since most half-orcs always look angry. But you can tell these people look pissed off.
You can tell because their faces look closer to a human smile, which is actually a fair grimace for an orc. And I take a...
As you're walking in, the thing you hear this servant you followed in say as you walk in, he goes, "Right, so we're all set then." And then he stops as like the door opens and he turns around and looks at you and he's like, "Who the hell are you?"
I take off my mask.
He relaxes visibly when he sees you're a half-orc.
Just another half-orc. Got invited to this pig show.
At which point he sort of huffs a little and says, "Don't be trying to play the smart beggar with me. There ain't no way one of our kind's getting invited to this shindig, not unless we're a servant or some butt boy for one of the nobles in there."
Okay, fair enough. I was invited as an associate of someone else. Quite undignified.
He looks around and he says, "Well, since you're one of our lot, word to the wise, if I were you, I'd get out while the going's good. Things are about to get messy later on. Real messy."
I smile at him like he which looks more like a frown for and like I just made a best friend. Look, I sit closer to him. I'm planning something messy myself.
He jabs you in the chest with his finger and he says, "Look, we've been setting this up for too long. We haven't got room for any freelancers coming in and messing up our plans." And he sort of like jabs his finger at you.
Does your plan involve one specific person? Because mine does. I'm sure we can both get what we want.
A couple of the other half-orcs laugh and he says, "Well, let's just put it this way. After tonight's finish, there's a few people around here who won't be treating us like dirt anymore. I'm sick of bowing and scraping and taking all that shit day in, day out. Yes, sir, no, sir, 3 fucking bags full, sir. What, just I've got green skin, they treat us like dirt. In fact, no, they treat their animals in the stables out there," and he points at the door, "better than they treat any of us. And all the time we're supposed to feel grateful, because otherwise we'd all be living in, like, mud huts on the rivers of Battlebridge, because we couldn't possibly do anything else because we're all too savage. And we can't read, we can't write, we can't drink out of stupid fucking little glasses like they can.
I mean, so neither of us want are particularly fond of those people. Why don't you consider helping each other out? Because I just need a bit of information.
What you got in mind, stranger? And what's your name?
Well,
I don't deal with people I don't know.
Thaddeus Villain.
He says, well, I'm Gazak.
Pleasure to meet you.
What you got in mind then?
Look, all I need is I need to know which room Samantha Laskaris. Which room she has.
Wow, I can tell you, but you ain't gonna get to her.
Why is that?
Too many guards, mate.
Can you tell me anyway?
Yeah, sure, why not? She's in the tower, isn't it? Older Lady Laskaris, she's got the quarters at the top of the tower. Samantha's in the floor below her.
And there's only one way up?
Yeah, up the old staircase. Like I said, there's guards at each floor, though. You'll never get up there.
Do they
ain't
patrol
talking
up and down?
No, they just stay outside the quarters. I'm not talking you shitty Battlebridge town guards. I'm talking like privately hired guards.
Alright. Okay. Well, thank you for that. Is there anything either I can do to help, or?
Well, we could do with another strong arm for when this thing goes down. Might get a little bit messy. And he flicks back his suit jacket, and you can see he's actually it must be sort of concealed down the side of the leg of his trousers. He's actually got what looks like a short sword on his belt, concealed by his garments.
Look, I can't be seen doing this kind of thing, okay? So, but I have done something covert. You?
What?
Whatever it is you're planning, if you make sure that hunch and that kitchen is taken out to the guests first.
Right.
Yeah, let's just say I spiked it with some quality orc vintage, and I show him the bottle.
He looks at the bottle and he actually sort of like laughs loudly, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I think that'll do it." Okay, humans can't hold a decent drink, that's their problem.
I laugh in agreement.
And they say we're primitive. What sort of race worthy of any sort of respect can't hold a decent drink without passing out? Anyway, what we're planning here tonight is going to make the Black Rock Massacre look like a walk in the park. There ain't no one getting out of here.
I kind of raised an eyebrow, and I now suspect this might be on a larger scale than I previously thought.
He sort of pats the sword that's concealed on his person. And he's like, yeah, there's loads of us all over the place. We've got a few of us in Battlebridge. We found out about this little shindig. A couple of us have been working our way in here for years. We'll show them just what us orcs can do when we put our mind to it. He turns to like the other orcs in the room and he says, "Don't you worry about it. We're going to go down in history for this."
Are you planning something suicidal?
Well, let's just say that all of us here, we're willing to do whatever's necessary and pay whatever costs for the cause. We're sick of being treated like second-class citizens. We're sick of being treated like dirt and being trod on. A couple of the orcs like, "Rrrr."
Forgive me for asking, but for saying this, but surely there must be a better way. than a massacre.
Violence is the only language these people understand. Don't you think if we could have tried another way, we would? But as far as they're concerned, our grandfathers, and he goes on for about 2 minutes saying grandfathers. Oh yeah, apparently they all worked with the Giths, so now of course all of us orcs, yeah, we're all Gith sympathisers. Oh, we just wait for him to come back so we can like turn on everybody. You ask me, it's just an excuse to treat us like shit. That's what it is.
I don't disagree with anything he's saying, even in real life, so this is difficult.
Okay, well, I'm going to jump to the others now. We'll give you time to think about what you've just found out. I'm going to turn back to Watoomb.
I'm not doing much. I'm looking around. I got a little disturbed by the conversation I had with the one guy I met. So I'm going to kind of try to avoid conversation. Again, just taking in all the sight stuff. But I will eventually dabble on some of the food.
The food is absolutely beautiful. It's probably like the finest food you've ever tasted. It's extremely subtle. There's nuances of flavour that you've probably never tasted in the sort of plain fare of your village. It's extremely fancy. As you're eating the food, there's a couple of nobles stood next to you talking, and you hear one of them say, yes, surely we don't have any night elves around here. They're just fairy stories made up to scare children. At which point, one of the nobles who's wearing one of these dwarven sort of metallic masks says, well, we've been seeing some strange things recently. Orcs, greenskins coming down from the mountains, where they've always stayed previously, sweeping over our holdings. Way I heard it, one of the smaller hamlets was attacked by night elves not a couple of 10 days ago. Of course, I've got a cousin who lives near the hamlet. Told me straight, said he even saw one of them. Well, I got no reason to doubt his word. I wish the other noble was sort of like, oh, well, if you heard it from a reliable cousin, who am I to go against this first-hand, entirely reliable information?
I'll remember what they said about the night elves and stuff, but I don't engage in conversation with them.
Okay, not a problem. As you're saying this, the door opens again, and the manservant says, presenting Nico Edgemar and party. At which point a group of people wearing these mirrored mosaic masks walk into the room and begin mingling with the crowd. The door is shut behind them. They begin mingling around and talking with people.
Okay, so Avaestar is getting a little bored with the people who he's been mingling with, and he's probably had several more slightly blasé attempts of people wanting to get with him in one of the back rooms. So he's going to try and look for someone more intellectual, and at this point he's just getting a bit impatient. So he's going to scan around the room, and he's going to cast Detect Magic, try and filter out some of the better people to talk to here.
Okay, you cast Detect Magic and you're sort of moving around the room. You're drawn to a person wearing a sort of wooden mask depicting some sort of fantastical creature, possibly a basilisk. He's stood in the corner. He's holding a wooden staff and wearing fairly plain robes. The mask appears to be the only thing particularly fantastic about his appearance. He's watching intently the dancers in the centre of the dance hall, almost though he's waiting for something.
So he's just standing there?
Yeah, he's sort of standing there, sort of watching the dancers.
Okay. I'm going to, as subtly as possible, which is probably not that subtle for Avaestar, walk round and stand a sort of an appropriate distance away with a drink of wine, maybe a bit of the punch or a sort of a more mealy type wine rather than appetizer, and try and engage in conversation, maybe something like, I find their dance moves very complicated, very intricate.
He turns around to you in a slightly foreign-sounding accent, which actually sounds quite similar to Watoomb's accent. Says, "Please, you must forgive me. I have an important appointment as soon as this entertainment is concluded."
Oh, I'm terribly sorry, my mistake. I did not realize that they were changing soon. I will keep my distance from you to keep privacy for you.
Not at all. If Matomwe has brought you to me for a reason, then you are here. That is the way of things.
Did you say a Tumway? Sorry?
Your pronunciation is a little off, but yes.
Ah, that's interesting. I know someone who worships the same as you. Very interesting.
Please forgive me, stranger. That is a common misconception. We do not worship the tides of fate. We believe that we are all moved by them and that we are all part of them. It is a common misconception.
I sort of smile and nod, remembering that Watoomb has also gone on and on and on about this. And again, he says something like, "Oh, yes, most fascinating. But anyway, I will leave you to your appointment." So what I'll do is I'll move around. If it's kind of like in a square shape, what I'll do is I'll move around to maybe the perpendicular side, or if he's still looking, the parallel side. But I'm not going to move away from the dance floor.
As you start moving off, he sort of holds a hand up, and as he does, his sleeve falls back, and you see he's got quite sort of dark skin. He holds his hand up and says, "Forgive me, did you say that there was another one of my own people here?"
Ah, yes. Hopefully he is still here. He came with me, in fact.
Perhaps that is why Matomwe has brought you to me, to facilitate an introduction. Forgive me if I'm not pronouncing this correctly. Your language is not my native tongue.
Of course. Unless it is him, of course, who has the appointment with you, in which case that would be a most unbelievable coincidence. But
my appointment is with the head of this grand place.
Ah, in that case, no. However, after the big reveal, I will be more than happy to introduce him to you.
Thank you, that would be most helpful.
I move away quite quickly at the talk of him meeting with the head of this great place, as he said. But I definitely want to get a good look at this, and maybe even do a little bit of eavesdropping.
Okay, not a problem. He doesn't really appear to be talking to anyone. He appears to be watching the dancers quite intently. As you watch, you see that the dancers appear to part after a few moments as they're all taking a breather, and the band is changing the song that they are playing. As you watch, many people are clapping. As you watch, you see this person wearing this tusked wooden mask move across the dance floor. He strides quite purposefully, and he walks, so he's directly in front of this dais, this raised dais where Samantha Laskaris is sitting, and he drops down to one knee, bowing, sort of putting his staff on the floor, and then looks up, at which point Samantha Laskaris says, "Yes? Can I help you at all?" At which point he says, "Forgive me for interrupting your evening's entertainment." And his voice seems to carry around the room with fairly little effort, although he's speaking quite softly. Watoomb, you will also hear this, and you recognise obviously the tones of someone who comes from the same area as you, although possibly not from your specific village.
I'll drift closer to him, but I haven't worked up the social courage yet. So it's kind of overwhelming.
He looks up at Samantha Laskaris and says, "Again, I say, forgive me for interrupting your evening's entertainment, but I am a stranger to these lands. The tides of fate have brought me here, and I am seeking patronage to establish myself in the local area. I was told that House Laskaris have been patrons for many trade endeavours and businesses throughout Battlebridge, so I would humbly like to submit myself and request your patronage. At which point, Samantha Laskaris, sort of stifling a yawn and looking a little bit bored, says, that's all well and good, but what is your trade, sir? What is it that you do? At which point he stands up and says, yes, of course, please forgive me, allow me a small demonstration. And he bangs his staff on the floor, at which point there is a gout of flame from the end of his staff. It forms into a shape very similar to the mask that he's wearing and hangs in the air for a few moments and then fades away with a slight smell of smoke.
I folded my arms in a huff.
You notice Lady Laskaris' eyes widen a little, and he says, well, I can see you obviously have some talent. Perhaps when the evening's festivities are wearing down, we can arrange a more private audience to discuss the matter. Now is really not the time for such a business, although I will speak to you later. Please enjoy the rest of the evening, at which point he stands up, holds his staff in two hands and says, thank you, that is all I ask. And he returns to the crowd and stands over by one of the tables, though he doesn't eat any of the food.
I need to use this the fates has brought me here trick more often.
Okay, and he stands off to one side, sort of quite with a look of wonder, you would assume. It's not difficult to assume that, given how Watoomb reacted upon arriving here. He appears to just be looking around the room and sort of leaning on his staff that he's holding in one hand. And he just generally
I'm just gonna note him so that when the reveal happens later, then I can find him again, like what he's wearing and stuff.
Okay, not a problem. I'm going to jump back briefly to audio servants' quarters. What are you up to?
Look, if you fight here and you all get killed, then you'll just make it worse for future generations of orcs, right?
The orc who identified himself as Gazak sort of shakes his fist and he says, how can things get any worse? There's only one way to go when you're at the bottom.
But their response might end up trying to eradicate orcs.
At which point he says, yeah, and they've been trying to get rid of us for years, and where's that got them? We've got the mountains, we've got the highlands, what have they got? Oh, they've got their fancy little meetings and their glasses and their wine and their boys and their girls and whatever other horrible things they get up to. And they call us savages. Fucking cheek.
Interesting. But well, surely there's even a better way to just rather than just going in and slaughtering them.
Wow, hey, you just Mr. Answers all the time. Well, if you've got something better to suggest, why don't you suggest it instead of beating around the bush? You've been hanging around with humans too long, son. That's your problem.
Perhaps it is.
One of the other orcs goes, yeah, why don't we cut him, see if his blood comes out red or green? At which point Gazak turns around and sort of like holds up his fist, so he's like getting ready to pimp slap the person behind him. And he's like, look, we didn't get into this so we could start fighting amongst our own. It's then we've got a beef with not our own.
Look, remember, I'm merely arguing with you philosophically. I'm not trying to stop you.
Philosophically? Fucking hell, you've come to the wrong place. Well, the right place, but you're in the wrong bloody building. Fucking philosophically. Philosophically, my arse.
Well, I'm going to kidnap Samantha.
Gazak throws his head back and laughs again. He's like, oh, you think we're going a bit too far? You'll never manage that. Never in a million years.
I will.
Wow, you've got a big pair on you, I'll say that.
And believe me, it makes no difference to me if you do this or not, because if anything, you'll provide the ultimate distraction.
Let me just ask you a question, friend. Just roughly, round it up to a number of days to make it easy for me to comprehend. Roughly how long in the last month have you spent amongst your own kind? You even been to Trolltown? You even seen what shit they rained down on us there?
I confess I haven't yet.
Or have you been living the life with your human friends and God knows whatever else? Well, because if the answer's yes, don't be coming in here and trying to tell us which way the fucking sun shines. Because I'll tell you where it's shining right now.
Okay. You know what? Fair enough. Maybe this is just the way of the world. Perhaps.
Of course it is. There's only one way things get done in this world. The whole world changed during the last war. There were probably wars before that. That's how things get done in this world. All the fucking fancy masks and clothes and wine and food and servants and horses and all that ain't going to change for the fact. The world is as the world is.
How many do you have?
Well, we got about 8 of us working here. We got some boys hiding in the woods nearby. We're going to let them in when this thing goes down. If everything's going according to plan, they'll have already taken care of the coach drivers that are out there. Can't have them related to the alarm now, can we?
I got a shudder like, damn, I was going to get food. Alright. Yeah, but how many do you have out in the woods?
He says, look, I don't mean to be like throwing any muck about, but to be honest, aside from the fact you're orc, I don't know you from anybody. So I ain't going to detail my entire operation for you. I've worked on this too long to like get blabbing about it.
Do you outnumber the people in there?
There's a lot of us. We've got a bit of outside helping.
I raise an eyebrow.
Oh yeah, what? Just as we're orcs, we ain't got contacts. I know people who know people. As you're saying this, they're sort of walking down the stairs at the far end of the room. A female half-orc walks out and she's carrying what appears to be like a sort of metal pot of some sort with a handle on it. And she goes, where do you want this? He's like, just put it down there. We'll need it when everything goes down. And as she puts it down, you can see there's effectively like what looks like white paint in the pail.
You're the Pale Marauders.
Don't be fucking stupid. But I'll tell you what, when if any people do get away and they report that, oh, we were killed by a load of orcs who had white faces, guess who's going to take the blame for it?
So, you wish to add to the infamy of Thaddeus and his Pale Marauders?
Yeah, why not? Or as I see it, they're the only lot who ever like stood up to the other races and told them what were what. At least that's the way my pa always told me.
That's what I heard as well.
And why shouldn't we? If they think we're all like creatures of the night, we're going to come out and steal them out of their beds, let them fucking think that.
If you truly had the ability to challenge the other races to open conflict, they wouldn't be subjugating us right now, would they?
Well, no, I suppose not. And he looks a little bit unsure of himself.
Finally. Exactly. If you actually wanted to do something like this, then take much longer planning. Perhaps you would need to create your own orc stronghold and build up your numbers. Perhaps.
Okay, at this point, can you make me a persuasion roll?
I have a -1 to persuasion.
That's all right, his skills aren't mad either.
I got a 9.
Beats my 7.
Okay.
Okay. As he talks to me, goes, yeah, stronghold. Yeah, that does sound very good, actually, yeah. Yeah, get together like a war band, like in the old days, like in the stories and that. Yeah. I could go for
something. Yes. But, look, there just aren't enough orcs in the world to challenge the elves, dwarves, humans, halfling, gnomes. But perhaps you could find other races to be your allies.
Yeah, other races. Yeah. Get like a big like war band together, like a massive one. Yeah, if we had to other people, yeah, then maybe we could really stick it to them. Yeah, I see what you're saying. Instead of just like taking out one small like build, and his eyes sort of get this like fervent look to them, and they sort of like seem to be like almost like lighting up with this sort of fervor. He goes, yeah, then maybe we could challenge like whole cities and towns rather than just like a and other people had like rallied to us, like other orcs who have been like squashed down. Yeah.
And
one of the other orcs is like, Gazak, what are you on about? Are we going ahead with this or what? We've got everything set up. He's like, give us a moment, I'm thinking about it. Yeah.
And,
like a big castle.
I could help you when it comes to the gathering of allies, if you wish. I at least know that the goblins seem to have been forced out of their homes.
Well, I don't know anything about that.
Yes, apparently there are small creatures that drove them away from their homeland, which means you could have like your equivalent of halflings and gnomes on your side. And clever little goblins.
Says, wow, that does sound right good, actually. Yeah, I like the sound of that. But wow, it's going to be too late for them poor buggers who are like just over the bridge or like parked in the forest. They'll have been dealt with by now. Mind you, that could be like a warning shot, yeah. Yeah, maybe if we like write something on like one of the coaches or like maybe set them on fire or something. Yeah, that'd send them a message.
That's a good idea. If you were to do that, could you do me a favor and make sure that Skullbasher Spike's punch is taken outside? That way, if people start tipping over, they see a fire outside, they might think they're under attack. Then you'd get them scared without wasting any orc blood.
Yeah, I like the sound of that. Well, how long ago did you spike that drink?
Just before I came in here.
Oh, it'll have already been taken inside now. They don't hang about.
Nah. Good.
He turns around to the others and he's like, all right, boys, change your plan. We're heading to, get your shit together. We're heading for the woods. We'll look up with the other boys then, and then we'll make a move from there. We'll talk to the coaches on the way out, though.
All right. So I'm staying at the Common Sword in Battlebridge.
Oh, la-di-da.
Look, you can come see me if you need anything.
They won't let people like us in one of them fancy, falutin, high-class taverns. I don't even know how you got in. What you didn't wear any disguise or something? Big hat, moustache, what?
No, they just let me in. They have a half-orc working there, you know.
What, you mean old Njorg?
Yeah.
Well, he talks a big game, but I reckon he's got more red in him than green.
I suppose. But
one of the other ones goes, Gazak, are we really just like calling it and like heading into the woods and like doing one? He's like, I thought we were going to knock over that chef first. He says, yeah, well, I was planning on like doing him right and proper. He's well annoying. He's like, I'll tell you what, why don't we kill them on the way out? Then we'll head out. We'll torch the carriages. Job's a good one. A couple of the rocks like, grrr.
Yes, that sounds like a great plan. Just make sure you're not caught.
Yeah, well, don't worry, we won't be caught. We'll just kill anyone who's in there. Yeah, I've always fancied myself as a bit of a war boss, to be perfectly honest. He says stuff like straightening up his clothes. Yeah, I could see that. Yeah.
And look, I can do my best to aid you in setting up the orcish community, and of course, my intention is hopefully get them to eventually go down a non-violent path. But and I can help you speak with other races, because I think orcs aren't the only ones that humans spit on.
Well, ain't that the truth? So yeah, the way I hear it, there's even some House and Azara who's not happy with how they're treated. You know, what with them being tainted blood and all that.
Okay. It's the first I've heard of that, but I'm new here.
Well, anyway, we've got places to go, people to kill, so you might want to make yourself a bit scarce.
Will do. And I head out.
As you leave, one of the other rocks go, Gazak, what if they're like the chef and that lot screaming? He's like, nah, the music's well too loud, they won't hear it. I ever steered you wrong before, trust me. And you head out. At that point, I'm going to call a short break for a couple of minutes so people can go and get a drink, whatever, nip to the loo. And when we come in, we're going to advance time to near the big reveal.
Okay.
I'll be right back in a moment.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, well, while we're waiting for Rob to get back, just thought I'd ask how you guys think the session is going so far.
As I was saying in the chat,
Good.
I'm now feeling more appealed about this small massacre than like a ginormous, large-scale orc war potentially happening. But yeah, it's good.
I like it. I'm liking it so far. I like the inclusion of like there's an orc massacre going to occur. I found it really troubling because in real life I'd be like, yeah, well, that's what you get for subjugating the orcs. What would I hit? And you know, in game I'm sympathetic towards the orcs, so I don't want to like shut down the idea of rebellion. Also, one thing I'll mention is I feel guilty when I have scenes that are that long. Which I don't think can really be helped.
This is a session that's obviously more focused on sort of social graces and like social manoeuvring than some of the previous sessions have been. And obviously there will be sessions in the future where it's more given over to different types of stuff. It's just what particular characters' sort of specialities are really. Trying to give sort of everyone a crack of the whip, effectively. And obviously there'll be the normal sort of sessions in Battlebridge where I try and incorporate the different sort of types of encounter.
Yeah, I'm really enjoying the session.
Good, that's the main thing. I was waiting for someone to go, there's not been enough combat in this session. Or any combat in this session.
Well, I was thinking, okay, there must be something that's going to happen, and then there was the orcs, so I thought, okay, well, that's probably the combat aspect, but then because they were persuaded to go off otherwise, I'm fine with that. I don't mind there not being combat necessarily. I mean, we could always start something if we wanted to, but I quite like the sandboxy feel.
Well, yeah, well, certainly the idea of this is basically to present the initial situation, say, right, this is what's going on, guys, so turn you guys loose in it, and then whatever happens is pretty much down to you guys. Obviously, there'll be a few things that will happen sort of either way, you know, like the announcements being made, people turning up, etc., that'll sort of happen regardless, but obviously this is just to sort of like turn you guys loose on it and go, whatever you guys make of this ball, this situation, is whatever you guys make of it.
I think Avaestar's main aim is really just to get brownie points and try and be accepted.
Excellent.
So, so if we're cutting ahead to the big reveal, how long is that?
It'd be no more than like an hour, hour and a half.
So there would have
been going on. It's been getting later.
There would have been no effects of the skull basher or people seeing the carriages on fire until then.
There will be some effects which I'll go into when we start again, but since it's diluted, it's taking a little bit longer to take effect. But there will be effects that I'll go into once we sort of pick up and start again. That's sort of like my initial sort of framing, as in just before the big reveal, this starts to happen.
I'm considering my plan to be the carriages have been burned and the drivers are killed. Someone wants us to trap us in this castle.
I could see how you could float that as a suggestion to people.
And say, no, nobody move. One of us in here is a murderer.
It's your inevitable quest to do a denouement scene again. I was waiting for you to be like, one of you here is an orc vampire.
When you said that lady had a reflective dress, I was like, do I see a reflection?
You would have done initially before she enacted the enchantment.
That's good to know.
yeah, you do have a reflection. In case that becomes applicable at some future point. Okay, so again, just while waiting for Rob to get back, what will you sort of guys be looking to do as the time leads up to the big reveal?
I think I would actually try to sneak into Samantha's room at this point.
Okay.
I would be mentally preparing myself so I don't mess up what I intend to do on this big reveal.
Okay. Splendid.
I think I know how to get up there. I have an idea.
Okay. Well, I look forward to seeing how that unfolds and how your plan progresses.
It depends how big the tower is.
Well, like I say, it's effectively 3 stories high.
Okay. So it's also like is it one of those towers that are like just like a part of like the castle? Like you can enter it from the main part of the castle?
It looks similar. It looks as though it might, because obviously you'll have seen this as you approach, I don't mind telling you this. It looks as though it might once have been just like a tower that was stood here, and then the rest of the mansion's been sort of built onto it at a later date.
Mm-hmm.
So like the tower is like a sort of older sort of stonework tower, and the mansion's been added on.
Mm-hmm. So yeah. So I don't need to enter from the first floor. Could I enter on the second floor and there's just one story above, or do I need to enter from the first floor?
You need to enter from the first floor if you're going to go through a door. You could potentially try and climb it if you wished, although that would obviously be quite hazardous and quite obvious to any of the guards stood around the grounds.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so are we all ready to crack back on then, guys?
Yarp.
Okay, you
Yes.
good, Rob?
Yes.
Splendid. Okay, so as the evening moves on and we start getting close to midnight, you notice that the door through which Samantha Laskaris entered opens, and you see a woman, you can tell by the shape of her gown, entering. She's wearing a particularly elaborate mask. You can see that it's one of these immaculately carved wooden masks. It appears to depict some form of sort of elephant or tusked creature. She walks into the room. You notice Madame Laskaris sort of look over at her and nod, and this woman sachets into the room and begins mingling with other people.
Okay, I'm getting a little impatient at this point, and I keep my eye on the timepiece on the wall.
Okay, as you're stood there, a fellow wearing one of these idealized human sort of golden masks who's stood nearby to you. Sort of, you notice he suddenly like gives out a slight cough, and he's sort of drinking out of one of these fluted glasses. He gives out a slight cough, and then he just literally like pitches forward and collapses to the floor. I wish you had a few people nearby like, oh!
How close is this to me? Like, does any of the thing he's drinking get on my robes or anything like that?
No, it just spills out over the floor as the glass slips from his hand. Then as you watch, like another couple of nobles sort of like further into the room sort of pitch forward and fall over as well.
Okay.
At which point Samantha Laskaris, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I go over to him and sort of give him an initial look over, maybe try and turn him over.
Yeah, turning him over is not a problem. A couple of nobles are standing around and they don't really seem to be sure what to do. They appear to be like you hear him going, oh, is this part of the entertainment? Or what's going on? This is outrageous. And so I dithering about and not really knowing what to do. You turn him over. You can hear the sound of his breath. He's obviously still breathing underneath his golden mask. Can you please make me a perception roll at this point in time?
Sure. Although it's -1. But hey-ho. It's an 8.
Okay. As this guy's sort of like lying there, you can hear his sort of as he's breathing. There's a very sort of pungent smell sort of coming out of his mouth as he's breathing out. You know you smelt it somewhere before, but you can't quite place it.
Maybe the punch is a little off. And I kind of look at my own glass, and then I put it back on a tray or maybe a table or something like that.
Okay, not a problem. Watoomb, as you're stood there, a couple of people near to you also drop to the floor, glasses falling out of their hand. A person who stood near to you wearing robes and a sort of featureless white mask looks over at a couple of his companions and he says, "This simply will not do. This is an outrage."
I'm new to this. I'm not sure if this is normal or just particularly odd, some kind of show. I will follow suit at least and put my glass down, not trusting what even's left of the glass I was drinking out of. And I'm just going to try and step back out of the way to observe.
Not a problem. As you step back out of the way, you see this red-robed figure with this white featureless mask talking to half a dozen of his fellows with similar masks on. He says, "You see, my acolytes, my students, this is why I advise you not to partake in these debauched pleasures of the flesh. This is why we bring you here as a test. Can you resist the temptations of the outside world? Are you worthy of the training that House Agasu has to offer?" At which point a few of them nod and they're like, "Yes, Master, of course. I trust none of you have imbibed any of this intoxicating liquor that is being splashed about so liberally." "Well, no, Master, of course not. Your teachings forbid it." "Good, then one day you may take your place as honoured members of House Agasu. These debauched revels that we are obliged to put in an appearance at, we see them as tests of our spiritual fortitude. If you can resist the pleasures of the flesh and of the senses as they are placed in front of you, then you will be truly worthy of seeking enlightenment, my students."
Okay, so do I see people falling over at the...
Indeed. As you see people falling over, you notice that the old woman, Madame Laskaris, stands up and she says, "What on earth is going on here?"
Alright, so I'm going to rush to one of the bodies. I'm rushing to one of the bodies, and I do, like, kind of... like, I'm checking his pulse and, like, listening to it, like, his heartbeat and doing all this, like, medical stuff. And then I'll stand up and declare, like, "He's been poisoned. The punch has been poisoned."
I'm going to say that the body you run over to is the one that's collapsed near Watoomb, and these featureless masked individuals, you check his pulse, etc. And you stand up and go, "He's been poisoned," in which case Lady Laskaris is like, "Guards! Guards!" and she clicks her fingers. And you see a number of the guards who have been sort of stood at the edge of the room wearing this grey and green surcoats, so immediately sort of move around the dais as though to protect her. You see one of the guards take this woman wearing this wooden tusked mask by the shoulder, and they start steering her towards the back of the room, towards the door that she entered by.
Okay, and that's another person?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
As this woman wearing the wooden tusk mask is moving away, and as you look at her, audience, you see what appears to be a shadow sort of hovering over her. No one else appears to be perceiving it, and as you stare at it, you can just about make out what appears to be a shadow-shaped hand, almost formed of darkness, sort of hovering over her.
What? Okay, so I look kind of horrified and confused at that, but I came here to do something, so I'm gonna step to. Sorry, give me a moment.
Okay, not a problem. Whilst you're doing that, Samantha Laskaris says, in light of these circumstances, the big reveal is cancelled. All of you, remove your masks immediately. At which one people starts up going.
Alright, so I take off my mask and I'm gonna sit closer and like I say, you should be arresting your chefs. You should send some guards to bring them over.
I take off my mask and just throw it to the ground.
Okay, you take off your mask and throw it to the ground in disgust that the big reveal has been spoiled. And as you do so, you hear a voice from some small way in the room go, "You!"
What,
Who are
me?
they pointing at?
Anyone who looks in the direction of the voice, you see and recognise the angry noble who was banging on the common sword door, Nico Edgemar, stood in the room. He's just taken his mask off, and as Avaestar sort of thrown his mask to the floor, he's basically gone, "You!" and like pointed at Avaestar.
Oh. Hello? Yes, I was invited.
He strides towards you, sort of pushing a few of the people out of his way as he does so. As he's moving towards you, you can see he's like taking off the glove on his right hand.
I envisage that you wish to challenge me. I would rather that we do this somewhere else and not in front of everyone.
As he gets level with you,
violent.
As he gets level with you, he doesn't even stop. He just strides up to you and he like slaps you around the face with this glove that he's holding. Quite a vicious slap. Not enough to do damage, but there's like a loud as he slaps you across the chop with his gloves, and then he throws it on the ground just in front of you. And he says, "This is exactly the type of place to settle a matter of honour." At which point Lady Laskaris is like, "What is the meaning of all this, Nico Edgemar?" And he turns and points at you and he says, "I have a debt of honour to settle with this lying minor scion of my own noble house. In deference to you, Lady Laskaris, if you do not wish it to be settled in the traditional noble manner within your halls, then we will step outside, since I do not wish to besmirch your honour or have you witness the horrific fate that beckons to this wealth." At which point the door opens and a guard comes running in from outside, and he's like, "Oh, all the chefs have been killed! All the servants have been killed! There's a fire in the forest just beyond!"
What's this?
The room erupts into people like shouting and going, "Oh my lord, my servants! Oh, what are we going to do?" Like everyone's sort of shouting at once.
I try and make an exit if at all possible.
Yeah, me too.
Now, I'm going to follow Avaestar.
Okay.
Like away from Nico, because obviously, like I want to sort of get away and.
Okay.
Even if I wanted to duel, this is not a good time.
Make me a stealth roll.
Yeah. Okay. That's not too bad. 13.
Okay. As you turn to leave, it's not a problem for Audius and Watoomb, since Nico's like assumed you were sort of like the little people. He's not really paying attention to you. After all, you weren't the one who sold him a bunch of bullshit. But as you turn to leave, he basically like puts a hand down on your shoulder and sort of like quite painfully, really, sort of like grips your shoulder in quite a strong grip.
Okay, fine, if he wants to play it like that. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to sort of grab his hand in order to just sort of throw it off, but as I touch his hand, I'm going to cast Shocking Grasp in order to make him really let go. And I'm going to simply say to him, "Didn't you hear what they just said? There is a fire. This is not the time, Nico."
Okay, roll your d8 to see how much lightning damage you do to him.
Oh yeah. 7.
Okay, he lets out a shout and draws his hand back as you see these like sparks of electricity on his hand. He's like, "Ah!" as he pulls his hand away. And he says, "How like one of your kind to try and trick your way out of a matter of honour using magics."
And how like your kind to be persistent and stubborn. And I storm out.
Okay, as you're storming out, Watoomb and Audius, are you following or have you left already?
I'm sticking close to Avaestar. I'm not sure if he's in danger or not, and I'm also following his lead etiquette and when to go where. So.
Okay. Which exit would they have gone out of? Because I kind of need to follow Samantha.
Okay.
Well, there's fire, so you go to the fire exit.
Okay. The woman was steered out.
Labeled fire exit.
The woman was steered out of a door at the back of the room near the dais where Lady Laskaris is sitting, and all of the other nobles are sort of trying to like crush to get out of the front door to try and see what's going on with this fire. There's quite a big crowd of people since they're all trying to like push out of the door at the same time. The decorum of the previous ball appears to be quite lost, as they're also quite panicked, almost like a stampede of nobles like crushing to get out of the front of this building. You think it's probably only the large amount of guards around Lady Laskaris that's dissuading them from trying to go out of the back door.
Okay. So I want to try follow after Samantha being taken away by the guards, assuming that person in the mask near Lady Laskaris was Samantha. I'm just assuming. I could be wrong. And my goal here is to see if I can cut off the guards.
Sorry, could you explain that? I'm not sure I'm quite getting that. What is your aim?
I want to see if I could, say, take a shortcut or simply move faster and end up in front of them.
Okay, I will say that will come down to an athletics roll.
Mm-hmm.
You will need to beat 15.
Hell yeah. That's 21.
Okay, not a problem. You get to the sort of door just ahead of them, and you can see there's 3 of these guards sort of staring this woman who's still got her mask on to this door.
So my intent is that before they see me, so like, would I be around a corner or behind a door from them?
You're sort of just around the side of the dais, so you're not exactly concealed from sight, but you're making it look like you're not deliberately heading for the door. You're looking like you're just sort of loitering around. And to be honest, there's a lot of other nobles loitering around, so I'm not looking sure what to do. So, yeah,
my intent, because okay, so have they not moved out of the main ballroom yet, then?
They're literally just getting to the door now, but you've got there before them.
Okay, so I'm going to leave out that door, and presumably, do I think it would be more reasonable for them to head to her room in the tower or somewhere else?
Okay, based on from what you've seen of the building from the outside, you expect this door at the back, rather than going to the outside, leads into the ground floor of the tower. So they're effectively trying to like, herd her into the tower and probably get her to her room or something similar.
Okay, so I'm going to go through the door, just got her shut behind me, and I'm going to run around a corner, and then I'm going to take out a dagger and start stabbing at myself, causing a bunch of superficial wounds.
Yeah, that's not a problem. You can easily do that.
The do you want me to take damage? Maybe like a D4 damage or something?
Take 2 hit points of damage.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm going to jump back to Watoomb and Avaestar, who are heading out. It's going to be quite difficult for you to get through the doors. Like I say, it's crowded with this press of panicked people. They're literally trying to like climb over each other to get out the door quickly. So through the small gaps in them, you can just see the trees beyond the drawbridge outside, and you can indeed see smoke rising from just over the trees.
It's hard to get through.
I don't know. I have to wait my turn, I guess.
Okay, so I try and get through a couple of people again by sort of casting Shocking Grasp, but only like a little tiny spark this time, so like in order to get them to jolt and hopefully move away a bit.
Okay, a couple of people do move out of the way, but there's far more than like two
Yeah.
people here. It's like literally almost everyone apart from maybe a dozen people in the room are like crammed to try and get through. As you're doing this, you hear a sort of old crotchety voice, and you see a dwarf with a grey beard who's discarded one of these metal masks. He says, "We must get Madame Laskaris to safety. You men with me," and he gestures to the other dwarves who are with him, and they immediately move to join the guards who are near the raised dais. At which point you hear, just over the hubbub, you hear Lady Laskaris say, "What are you doing here, my old friend? I wasn't aware that you were attending. I thought sure your nephew, the High Lord, would be here." "No, I mean, he sends his regrets, my lady, but this isn't the time for this. We need to get you to a place of safety. Whatever devilry is going on here, we need to get you out of here."
Watoomb, can you help me through here? Surely this has something you can do.
Not without hurting these people.
I don't think that's really the point. They're going to be clawing their way out as well.
All right, I'll tell you what. I'm going to cast prestidigitation at the ground to make it kind of rumble and minor tremors occur. Maybe I might knock a few down.
Okay.
I'm not going to hurt them.
As you do that, the effect.
I'm not going to sleep them when there's a fire.
The effect is actually far more pronounced. As there's this rumble sort of through the area near the door, a few loud screams and cries go up from these nobles who are convinced that they're about to be devoured by sort of horrible monsters any moment. The way they're panicking, they immediately sort of scream and almost like a herd sort of run towards the other end of the room. Can I ask each of you to please make me a Constitution save to see whether you get knocked over in this huge swarm of people?
Okay.
Ooh, oh yeah, it's proficient. That's
There might
good.
be more dex or strength, but okay, don't matter.
Okay, that's a 9.
I'm going to
It
say
depends
no,
how you're trying to avoid
whatever
it.
was.
If you try to dodge out of the way, yeah, you can make a dex one. That's fine. If you're trying to just sort of like stop yourself falling over, it'll be a con.
Well, I get
I'm
an
happy
8.
with that. Okay, that's you are at. What did you get? Sorry, Avaestar.
9.
Okay, you are both bowled over by this almost tidal wave of people screaming and throwing their hands up and running towards the other end of the room. You each take 2 hit points of damage. As basically you're trampled by a few people. Most of them try and avoid you, but a few people do step on you.
Just like a mosh pit. Okay.
Indeed, I think in these polite circles I prefer to call it a mosh soiree.
Oh yes. So even though I can't really do anything else, I'm gonna kind of try and glance up if I can, see if there's any sort of window or a ladder or something, and hope that I can get to it later.
Okay, Watoomb, as Avaestar and yourself are sort of bowled over, from where you're sort of picking yourself up, Watoomb, you see Nico Edgemar sort of stride through the crowd. He literally just like knocks people out of the way as they're getting near him, sort of backhands them out of the way. And as he gets nearer, you see him literally sort of draw a rapier from his belt, and he points the tip of it down at Avaestar's throat, so it's like hovering an inch above your throat.
Okay, I'm going to cast a firebolt on him and try and hit him right in the chest with firebolt.
Okay, not a problem. You can certainly cast your firebolt. Okay.
I'm going to do inspiration because I think Avaestar's life might be online.
That's fine by me.
So 15.
Okay, yeah, that's certainly hit. Roll your d10 damage.
Right. So I quickly shoot my hand and a little blast of fire goes on his chest.
Okay.
I don't know how flammable his clothing is, but maybe. Spread the fire.
Okay, you throw your hand out and this little bolt of fire hits him in the chest. It knocks him off his feet and he falls to the floor unconscious.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I rush over to make sure he's not dead.
He's got a little bit of singeing on his chest. His clothing doesn't appear to have caught fire since it's quite sort of reinforced. He is breathing, but he's unconscious.
You could have done something a
As
bit
long as
more
I feel he's
subtle.
going to live, I'm okay.
Yeah, he'll live.
I have limited spells at my disposal. Perhaps in time.
Yes, well, unfortunately, he knows where I sleep.
Well,
He's not
next time I
exactly
will
going
hesitate.
to not hesitate to fight dirty on me now.
As you're saying this, you hear a woman shriek loudly, which I won't do because I don't want to deafen you all. And she goes, "Oh, the savage is trying to burn us all!"
Well, I'm going to go outside if I can. I'm just going to still try and get outside now.
The door's free now. Everyone's herded away from it. You
All right, yeah.
the door.
I'm going to urge Avaestar to do the same.
Of course, etiquette's gone completely out of the window at this point.
Okay, the first thing
Don't
you
make
see
me
when
ruin saving you.
the first thing the two of you see when you get outside is you can see what appears to be about 8 or so people sort of spread-eagled on the courtyard. They look like they're wearing chef's whites. You can see one of them, a particularly plump-looking man with an expression of shock on his face, is literally like pinned to the floor by a number of kitchen knives stuck through various parts of his body. The amount of blood on the floor near these 8 people leaves little doubt that they are very, very dead.
And recently, like within the past hour at the most.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, the blood's not coagulated fully, so it certainly happened within the last hour.
Well, I'll certainly look around for signs of murderers. Do I see any murderers?
Okay, you don't see any sort of obvious murderers lingering around. You do, however, notice as you're looking around, though, Watoomb, that the door of what you assume must be the kitchen, given that these people seem to be spread around it, is like hanging off by like a single hinge, as though it's been almost ripped off its hinges. You can also, as I say, see this smoke rising just beyond the trees where you know the coaches were to be parked.
It seems right to investigate, and yet I defer
Yes,
to
the
you.
coaches, come on!
What of Ordeus?
Oh, he'll find a way out. He's tough.
I shrug and believe him.
Okay, splendid. The two of you head towards where the coaches are, and as you get round the sort of copse of trees to where the coaches are parked, you can see they're all sort of tipped on their sides. Most of them are in flames. You can see the bodies of coach drivers and servants, footmen, etc., lying strewn about, many of them with savage sort of slashing injuries across their bodies.
Why such horror? It would seem that whoever perpetrated this did not want any to leave, or perhaps survive.
One thing does strike you as odd as you're looking at these bodies is that all of them have what appears to be like white paint daubed on their faces.
Is it a murderer's mark?
I have no idea. I feel that Ordeus might know more of these matters.
And speaking of
Yes,
which,
well, he's not here, is he?
at that point I'm going to jump
I have no
back to
answers for you.
Ordeus. I'm going to jump back to Ordeus for the moment. Okay, you've inflicted these minor injuries on yourself. You see the 3 guards leading this woman through. As she's led through, she takes a mask, and you see this quite beautiful woman as she's being led through.
Yeah, so I go and confront them, and I'm like acting like I'm limping, and I'm holding out like the book that I took from Thaddeus that has inside page open on like a horrific illustration. They'll be like, it was waiting in the Laskaris tower. I snatched this from him.
One of the guards who seems to be in command says, "You there, man, see to his injuries. We'll take her, my Lady Laskaris out the front entrance. You, man, with me." And they start sort of turning around to lead her out the door. One of the guards rushing over to you.
And I want to make an attempt to convince him that they the figure is still in the room and they need to go take care of him.
Okay, make me, I presume, a deception roll.
Yeah, deception. Okay.
You need to
17, which... Yeah, okay. Yeah, I rolled an 18, but I have -1. Okay, I could spend inspiration, and I think I will. Okay, 18. God.
Okay. The what appears to be the captain of these particular guards, you would assume, since he appears to be the one in command, says, "What do you mean he's still in the ballroom?"
I nod. He's a caster. It'll take all three of you.
He turns to the young lady and says, "Forgive me, madam, but we're going to have to take you out of one of the windows. We'll follow along. It's the safest way to get you out of the building." And they basically start leading around to like a small window on the sort of ground floor. It's very small. Like she'll have to squeeze to get through it.
Mm-hmm.
And the guard captain says, "Again, my apologies for this, milady," and he sort of holds his hands down like that so she can step on his hands and he can help her up to the window ledge.
Mm-hmm.
The guard who was coming over to you has sort of come over to you and he's starting to like check over your injuries.
It's fine. Don't, because I don't want him to look too closely. Yeah, it's fine. Nothing. No, the wrists are uncovered. I mean, I'm tough.
Okay, make me a deception roll.
Oh
You
dear.
need to beat 13.
17.
Okay, he says, yes, you're probably right, I need help with Melania Laskaris. He says, I think he'll be all right, Captain. And he sort of moves over to where the others are, sort of leaving you alone for the time being. You see they're trying to help this like young lady wearing this sheer gown sort of out of this small window.
Okay, so I'm gonna around the corner and see if I can climb down out of the window out of that wall.
Okay, yeah, there are two windows on this level. It'll be a bit of a squeeze for you, to be honest, because it's quite a small window.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yep.
it'll probably take you a while to wriggle through it, but
I go to it and I sort of surprise myself as I instinctively seem to know how to sneak through such a window and how long it'll take. Like, the process doesn't surprise me.
okay, not a problem. As you're sort of wriggling out of this other window, you see the Lady Laskaris, Samantha Laskaris, drop out of this window. Then you see the captain's face appear at the window. And obviously, with their armour on, they've got no chance of like squeezing through this window. You hear him shouting, "You men, over here, secure Samantha Laskaris. We need to make sure she's taken somewhere safe."
Mm-hmm.
And you see a couple of guards who are like quite a lot further out on the perimeter, start sort of heading towards it.
So while the guards above turn away, and before those guards attack, I'm going to knock her out.
Okay, not a problem. Make me an attack roll. I won't ask you to make damage if you succeed. You just be like...
Okay. Would I have advantage on this attack roll? I'm probably not going to fail the attack roll, but
I'd say so. She's not expecting a giant half-orc to drop out of the window and lay her out.
Well, you never know. 19, so...
Okay, yeah, not a problem. She immediately starts crumpling to the ground. You can catch her if you wish.
Mm-hmm.
You see the guards, like, eyes widen as they're running towards you. They draw their swords and start really sort of running rather than the sort of striding walk they were taking previously. Like, someone's attacking Samantha Laskaris! You there, on hand now, villain!
Okay, running away with her.
Okay, not a problem. That's going to be an opposed athletics roll. You will have the disadvantage since you're carrying someone.
Yep. You remember how I told you that I thought I might die in this session?
Okay, what did you get?
A 3.
Okay. The guards are going to reach you before you have a chance to abscond with young Samantha Laskaris. And as they draw level with you, I'm going to jump across to Avaestar and Watoomb for a few moments.
Wait, there's an escape vehicle? I didn't actually realise.
Yeah, we just got in it and took off, I think.
Oh, I see. I didn't realise there was
You
anything
just
more.
write in a coach and go, forget this.
Oh, right, okay. Well, I would have still done that anyway, especially if there was a
You will see as you're looking around that pretty much all the horses have been either killed or let go, so there's no real chance of like absconding with a coach. However, as you're looking around, you hear this coming from one of the coaches.
As in,
we'll
like, adjacent to us?
Okay, Watoomb, you head over to this coach, which is on its side.
Yeah, I followed, yeah.
Peer in. You can see what appears to be a coach driver, not your own, but it's like a young human man. He's got a deep cut across his chest, and he appears to be sort of trying to hold his insides in with his hand. There's blood covering his arms. His face is horribly pale. He appears to have this white paint daubed on his face, and he's like...
What is it, Watoomb? Is someone still alive in there?
So it would seem. I'm going to try and do a medicine check on him to see if I can stabilize him.
Okay, not a problem. Make your medicine check.
Hey, 18 plus something. I only need a 10, so...
You're pretty sure you can stabilise him for the moment, but given the severity of his injuries, he's going to need to get some like proper like medical attentions very quickly.
Okay,
but you stabilised him for the moment.
I try and catch someone official in my own coach and say, hey, there's someone still alive in that coach over there. He needs medicine.
Okay, looking around, you see that pretty much any of the nobles who've made it outside are pretty much sort of running around in a panic, sort of like headless chickens, not really knowing what's going on. All sense of decorum has been entirely lost. Well, neither does. Can you maybe a perception roll, though, Avaestar?
Yes, I shall. Hey, 17.
One thing that does strike you as odd is, apart from the murdered sort of footmen and coach drivers, there don't appear to be any servants about. It's just like the sort of nobles flapping about.
Where have all the servants gone? Sure, they should be trying to get people out efficiently, helping people evacuate.
As you're saying this, you notice a figure wearing sort of quite posh garb. He has two horns emerging from his forehead. He has like a number of similarly looking people behind him. He walks over and he looks down with a slight sneer at the dead bodies on the floor, and he says, well, and I thought this shindig was going to be boring. Looks like that's 2 gold pieces I owe you, my fine fellow. It looks as though we'll be walking back to our family's holding. I suggest we leave immediately. I don't really have the stomach for this sort of barbarity at the moment. I'm not wearing the right sort of clothing.
If you're walking back, maybe you could think more about your morals.
Yeah, pretty much everyone here is kind of horrible. From what I've seen so far.
His head snaps around as you sort of say that quite quietly, but he seems to hear you. He looks around at you and he says, dear sir, haven't you heard the rumours? House Nazara has no morals. And he sort of chuckles as though he's sharing an in-joke with his fellows, and he's like, come on, my brothers and sisters, it's a long walk back to our holding, and they start walking down the road away from the estate.
I do get tired of these soirees at times, or two, for these very reasons.
You can
I must say, I have no desire to experience one again.
The guy that you've stabilised, he's sort of like, with a shaky hand, he sort of reaches up to try and like grab your garment and like pull you closer to his face, Watoomb. As though he's trying to speak to you, but his voice won't carry that far due to his injuries.
Well, I'll put my ear to his mouth to listen.
It's like, it was the orcs. They murdered all of us. They set the wagons on fire. horses.
Audius. Why do I get the feeling he's involved in this?
That's racist.
No, we just know
Yeah,
Ordius.
he said it was the orcs.
Orcs, half-orcs.
His hand sort of falls away from you as he gasps out that. You can see he's stabilised, but he's obviously having a bit of trouble breathing. It's helping that you've propped him up a little bit to take the stress off his lungs. But you can hear his breathing's quite raspy. Like,
from what Avaestar has just said, I'm just going to lay him back gently, and then I am starting to wonder about Ordius and where he's got to. I'm going to start looking around for him as best I can. Perhaps we should find him. He may have gotten himself into more difficulty.
I'm not going back in there. If Nico wakes up, he's going to stab me in the back.
Can the two of you both make me a perception roll, please?
Yes.
I wasn't necessarily suggesting looking inside. There's a lot of grounds here.
13.
Pretty good. Better than 13. 16.
Okay, Watoomb and Watoomb only, with your very acute hearing, over the crackling of the burning carriages and the panic squawking of these panicking nobles, in the distance you hear a voice shout, "He's trying to kidnap Samantha Laskaris! Unhand her, you villain!"
Alright, I'm heading in that direction. I've got big long legs. I'm taking big strides.
Watoomb, where are you going?
I think there is more trouble here than what is at first obvious.
Right. Wait for me.
Besides, we cannot leave by this manner. There are no horses.
Legit.
No.
Okay, now, since they're on the far side of the estate, it'll obviously take you guys some time to get there, but I'll cue you in when you do get there. Meanwhile, Audius, the two guards have drawn level with you. Their swords are drawn and pointing at you. You seem a bit willing to press the attack, given that you're holding Samantha Laskaris.
I'm going to hold a knife to her throat, and it's going to say, I assure you I have no intention of killing this young lady, but by the time, if you wish to chase me and engage me further, by the time you've dealt with me, my associates will have already killed Lady Laskara.
Well, they're sort of still holding their swords out, although they're not sort of pressing the attack for obvious reasons. One of them says, "Now look, whatever your issue is here, put down the knife and we can talk about this. Do you really think you're going to get off this estate taking Samantha Laskaris as a prisoner? Just put the knife down. We can discuss whatever your problem is. You don't have to die here this evening."
I can't give away my only leverage, so
I give you my word, we will listen to whatever grievance you have, but we cannot listen to you while you are holding a knife to one of our master's throats. We can't let you leave here. You must understand that.
And I can't let you pursue me. No, how about you let me go to that tree line over there, then I'll set her down, let her leave. You guys will be waiting here, so you'll be appropriately distracted from saving the lady.
Okay, can you make me a deception roll, since I presume you're not actually going to do that?
Yeah. 18.
Okay. The guard says, "I'm sorry, sir, we can't let you do that."
Yeah, I didn't think so.
This standoff ensues for a few minutes, and as you're obviously looking around, or you're keeping the knife to her throat, but looking around, you can actually see, as you sort of look around the edge of the building, you can see Watoomb and Avaestar sort of heading towards where you are, and they're still quite some way away.
Can we see what's happening by this point?
Not at the minute, because there's a couple of guards in the way, but you can just about make out the top of Audius's head sort of over there, and you can see these guards have got swords out. They're sort of glinting in the moonlight, and they're pointing them at Audius. He appears to be holding someone or something in his hands, but you can't see because the guards are in the way.
What's he done?
So Okay, so yeah, I'm going to. Does she still have that dark arm? Hand around her?
Indeed, the hand, the shadowy hand that only you can see, still appears to be like hovering over her head.
Mhm.
Although you notice that as you sort of took hold of her and you put the knife to her throat, the hand actually went like this.
Okay. Alright. I'm going to cut her throat and run to the tree line.
Okay, not a problem. I'm not going to ask you to make a roll to cut her throat, since that's easy. You've got the knife there.
Yeah.
However, you are going to have to make an athletics roll to get to the tree line, because once you've slit the throat, these guards are going to be trying to take you down.
Actually, what I'm doing is I'm using my action to throw a spiked batons on the ground as I'm running past, and I'm using my bonus action to dash. So I can still make an athletics roll?
Yeah, and you'll get advantage.
Okay. 16.
Okay, yeah, not a problem. So Avaestar and Watoomb, as you run round the corner, you see that Watoomb is stood there and he's holding this young lady who you don't recognise. He has a knife to her throat. You see the two guards sort of pointing these swords at him, although they're obviously not attacking. As you watch, Audius goes, draws the knife across her throat, blood's like out of her throat. At which point, describe what you do, Audius, and what they see. You have outpaced the guards to the tree line.
Alright, so yeah, you see him run to the tree line and like speeding up at like quite a fast pace, and you see him like throw like spike batons on the ground, which just mechanically, John, if they get it, take a point of damage, their speed's reduced by 10 feet until they take it out. Yeah, and I dive into the tree line.
Okay, not a problem. You see this as described, Audius like throwing these sort of spiky caltrops down as he bolts for the tree line, like probably faster than you've ever seen him move. One of the guards gives chase and he runs into these spike caltrops and he's like, ah, and starts trying to pull him out to see. The other guards run over to this now sort of lying prone woman, and he's trying to like hold a hand over a cut throat, and you see blood like pissing over his hands. He's like, we need some medical help here! We need some medical help! Somebody!
Well, from my perspective, I see Audius murder a helpless noble woman, and the authorities after her. I'm going to slow down and come to a stop. I see no reason to help him anymore.
Yeah,
I'm shocked at the actions of my friend. He's a murderer, and I feel he deserves his fate now. So I'm not going to try and help him.
Yeah, I'm gonna try and maybe round up some more guards, attract people's attention that someone's just had their throat slit.
Yeah, not a problem. The guards shouting for sort of like medical assistance. Other guards are converging on the scene. A couple of them sort of move towards you as though they suspect you're involved in it, and then obviously seeing that you're not, you just look like your members of the party who are sort of milling around. They immediately go over and they start trying to pick this Samantha Laskaris up. This guy's still trying to hold her neck. There's blood spilling out in a great torrent. He's like, we need to get her to the family physician, quick! And they start like trying to carry her and almost run with her back into the building. Avaestar and Watoomb, what are you doing?
Are they giving pursuit into the trees, or has he made his escape good as escape?
It appears to have made good his escape. A few guards are following, but they're very much behind him. He's like disappeared into the trees like ages ago.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know what to do. I'm going to stand there dumbfounded. I'm at a loss.
I'm gonna basically sort of hold the doors open for people and like help her through. If there's any sort of potential for looking good at this point, Avaestar's running out of ideas, but yeah, he's gonna do that.
Make me a performance roll, Avaestar.
Oh, okay, yeah, right. That's fine. No, I'm not efficient in it. Okay. Oh, I got a 14.
Okay, in which case, as you go through and you're doing your best to help and you're shouting for all the right people, you do indeed come off as being someone who's very concerned for her welfare. As she's carried inside, Lady Helena Laskaris, the older Lady Laskaris, head of the household, immediately sort of bursts into tears and runs over and says, "Oh, my daughter, quick, so someone fetch the house physician." And then she sort of like looks at you and puts a hand on your shoulder and says, "Oh, thank you for helping my daughter, sir. Thank you. I will not forget this kindness. Where is that damn physician?"
I kind of stop as they sort of move off, and while I'm obviously sort of really confused as to why Audius has done this, there's like a little smile and a big sort of sigh of relief that appears on Avaestar's face. So he will sort of now quite, with a bit of warmth in him, he's going to sort of slowly head back out, meet up with Watoomb.
Okay,
What do we do now then?
As you're heading out, Avaestar, before you get out there,
Oh, yeah.
from the sort of tower side door at the back of the room near the dais, an old man with a slightly balding head and like a white beard and sort of fairly plain-looking robes comes walking out. His eyes widen as he sees Samantha Laskaris in this pool of spreading blood on the floor. He moves over to her and starts checking her out, and just as you head out of the door, you hear him in a very sad, soft voice say, I'm sorry, my lady. She's gone."
I turn back again.
You hear this utter wail of despair, anguish, and anger come from the head of the Laskaris household, Helena Laskaris, as she throws back her head and wails loudly.
I hope you're happy, Audius.
I'm just sitting on the grass, cross-legged, praying to Matonwe for guidance. I'm just confused.
As you're doing this, do you have your eyes closed when you're praying to Matonwe, or?
I'm usually looking up.
Okay, as you're looking up, you feel a slight sort of depression on the ground as someone sits down next to you, and if you look across, you see a dark-skinned man wearing a sort of fairly simple sort of sarong-style outfit, holding a wooden staff, and he sits down next to you, puts the staff across his knees, and then he says, "I was not expecting any events like this to occur, but the ways of Matonwe are indeed strange."
Truly they are. I also found these events most unexpected. I knew there would be surprises tonight, but not so many unpleasant ones.
Tell me, I'm a stranger to these lands. Have you walked to them for long?
I have not. I am a stranger here as well. I have been here but a short time, and one I thought was a friend, I was completely mistaken of. It is for this reason I speak to Matonwe.
Indeed, and I hope Matonwe provides some comfort to you. I find it strange that these people seem to fall on each other like rabid mountain wolves at the slightest provocation. Is this normal for this area?
Every time I think I have an understanding of what their levels are, they seem to push them to excess, particularly here, in all things.
You sort of walk across as this conversation reaches this point, Avaestar, and you hear this other person say, "Indeed, their ways are truly strange and difficult to understand."
Alright, so I kind of come round, see the both of them, recognise the other man to be the one I spoke to earlier, and I sort of awkwardly gesture a hand and say, "Watoomb."
He looks at your hand, Avaestar, and he says, "Watoomb is a strange name for someone who has your appearance," he says to you, Avaestar.
So, my companion here is called Watoomb.
My apologies, I am a stranger to these lands. I am Arnameb. Now, to yourself, Watoomb, this is something that would probably have been lost on Avaestar. You know that this person, his accent is similar to yours, but not the same. So he might be from somewhere that's similar to your culture, but he's obviously not from the same sort of village or the area where you were brought up. The slight differences that will be lost on an outsider.
So I'm going to ask him about where exactly he came from and try to mentally picture that in relation to where my village was. And on top of that, I'm going to show him the wand. And does any part of this look familiar to you? Perhaps the material it is made of.
He looks at it and says, I am from the southern kingdom of Amcat, many leagues to the south of this island. I left there for my own reasons, but I have seen a device like this before. The pharaoh kings of Amcat carry such a device.
They do, and for what purpose?
It is believed where I come from that those who rule the land do so because they are descended from the gods. The item that you carry is similar to one that I have seen the pharaoh king himself carry. It is his proof of office, if you will.
And these kings, are they just, fair?
They are fair to a point. They carry power within their blood. Please understand that Amcat is a very different place to here. Whatever place you are born into, that is the role that you're expected to carry for the remainder of your life. Those who are not born into the ruling caste who display abilities that are not deemed fitting are outcast. I myself am such a person. That is why I left.
I pause for a minute and then I smile. I look up and I say, gratitude be to Matanwe, for I now understand why he has sent me to this place tonight. It is to learn many truths, that a friend was not a friend at all, and to learn that what I hold is perhaps has a purpose beyond serving evil. I thank you and Matanwe for this information.
And Matanwe's blessings to you. It is said amongst the stone people where I live that if you live long enough, all friends become enemies and enemies become friends. Perhaps that is what you speak of.
I bet they do.
Indeed, although you appear not to have any of the stone people here.
No.
That is good. They are difficult to understand. Their thoughts are not like our thoughts.
So what? You just intend to sit here all night?
I am simply taking this opportunity since I believe Matanwe has led me here to meet someone who seems to share beliefs with myself, and perhaps in some small way I have provided some of the answers that he seeks. When I leave here, I will continue on to the large town near here, where I intend to attempt to make a better life for myself than I would have had in Amcat.
That's all very well, but I have someone who wishes to settle a debt. Some unfinished business, and last time I checked, Watoomb had incinerated him slightly and rendering him unconscious.
At which point this dark-skinned figure looks across at you and says, "Ah, then indeed Matanwe's power flows through you as well."
I smile and shake my head.
Then it is fortunate, my friend, that you were not born in the kingdom of Amcat, otherwise you would have found yourself outcast like myself.
I stand up, I help him to his feet, and I am grateful to have met you.
And I am also grateful. Perhaps we will see each other again if Matanwe wills it.
I hope that is true.
Well then, be well, both of you. And he turns around and begins to walk away into the tree line away from the estate and all the shenanigans that are going on.
It would seem, Avaestar, we have a long way back to Battlebridge.
Yes. Perhaps we should stay somewhere different if Nico is intent on settling things with me.
We must at least stop at the inn to inform Drax of what events have occurred here and the truth about Ortius.
Oh, I almost forgot about him.
It is easy to do.
With everything that's happened tonight. Well, I suppose I could do with a permanent bodyguard, and Ortius refused. I'm sure Drax would be more than happy to oblige.
Okay, so of the two of you making your way back to Battlebridge on foot?
Yeah.
Yeah, we haven't got a choice.
Yeah.
Okay, not a problem. You turn and begin to walk away from the Laskaris estate, the wailing of Lady Laskaris still fading away into the distance as you walk, masked slightly until it is lost amongst the crackling of flames and the shouting of other panicked nobles. And as you begin the long, long walk back to Battlebridge, that is where we conclude our session. Thank you very much for playing, guys. I hope you enjoyed the session. I'm obviously free to chat a bit.
Thanks for running it, and for the record, I am so sorry.
Okay, well, I'm happy to discuss this for a bit once we finish the broadcast, but for now, thanks to anyone who watched, and thanks to my excellent players, and we will hopefully see you all for the next session. So I'm going to end the broadcast now. Bye-bye.
Bye.